We're ready, Alan?
I call to order this regular meeting of the Zoning Code Update Citizen Advisory Committee for Thursday, March 5th, 2026. Could we have a roll call, please?
Alan Spence,
Here.
Joe Conk, Carrie Snyder, Robin Prudhomme Bauer,
Here.
Craig Backus,
Here.
Virginia Smith, Laura Jones, Selna Powell, Selena Powell. Sorry.
Here.
Selna. I got Selna on the next name. Ray Selna. Thank you.
Do we have any members of the public on Zoom? Okay, so no public comment. Going on to the minutes, approval of the minutes from last time. Does anybody have any questions or concerns or comments? If not, I'll take a motion.
I move that we approve the minutes of the draft minutes of the CAC meeting on February 18th to 2026 as presented.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, and I said, I was an aye as well. So they're approved. Going on to new business. We'll start with chapter 2. Who wants to, Clover, you want to take that?
Sure. Yes. All right. So chapter 2 is definitions. We didn't make anything significant. The only thing I really changed was, and I don't think it's in your copy, I apologize, is I changed the definition of roof. Because originally, which is on page, if you're at the top pages, it's page, should be page 37 of 52.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, so originally all it had was the outside covering of a building or structure. So obviously that's not the definition of roof. So I updated it to say the exterior top covering of a building or structure, including the structural components and materials designed to protect the building from weather. So I did it based. Okay. I did it based on what I found in the Planner's Dictionary and some other examples online. So I think that was the only major change I made. There are a couple other definitions that we're going to move to strictly the marijuana section in chapter 4 that just hasn't been done yet. The one that comes to mind is delivery and smoke. So those two specifically refer to marijuana. If you guys would like to have a broader definition of delivery and smoke in the definitions, I can do that as well. But the ones that are in there right now, we're going to move to the medical marijuana section in chapter 4. So, yeah, absolutely.
Adult entertainment.
Mm.
I said, is this really the only thing that establishes something as adult?
Yes.
Is that what I get? Yeah, because I guess bars, kids can go in bars, right? That's not considered adult entertainment.
Not all bars. Well, like the brewery, because I think you have to serve food and then children can come in or people under
Certain percentage, yeah, you have to
like
have
to
some
10, 12.
skills.
I can't bring my 5-year-old.
Legally, you can.
I can't.
My policies,
Right.
but if anybody under the age of 21 can come in with their parent.
Okay.
But and which is why the brewery lets people come in. That's just their environment.
Okay. I thought it was like you have to have food or something.
I just was curious about.
In my house.
And I'm assuming there's like you just said, there's a dictionary that does these definitions, so. I'm okay with that, if that's what you said. Under agricultural tourism,
Mm-hmm.
it says agricultural tourism may include tasting rooms, hotels, restaurants associated with primary, and then there's a question, bed and breakfast. Should we just put lodging? Like instead of hotel, bed and breakfast. Like, is there just a generic term for that, like lodging?
AC rooms, hotels, restaurants, permanent agriculture. Instead of hotel, so
It said, and there was a comment, so it says hotels and then there was a comment, bed and breakfast, and I.
No,
So do you
I
start
don't
listing
think-
a whole bunch of things? or do you
no.
just say Lodging.
yeah, I would maybe instead of hotels, I would, if everyone's okay, we can change that to lodging.
Yeah,
Okay.
that makes it nice and
It's just
generic.
broad.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We have airport in here. I thought we talked about adding airstrip also as a separate definition.
I thought I had done that. Okay, I'll make a double note. Okay.
Anything else?
I have one.
Mhm.
You ready? You got yours?
No, keep going. I'm scrolling to find my comments. Go
Okay.
ahead.
I just want to make sure we line up with town code and fee schedule and this. We have accessory dwelling unit. My conundrum comes when I have ADUs because the way the fee schedule is written is that each individual multifamily unit is charged the base rate for sewer. So if I have an ADU that is inhabitable by a separate family than the primary residence, then that is 2 base sewer fees per the fee schedule. But the way this is written, the accessory dwelling unit may or may not contain a secondary kitchen, but then you wouldn't have a separate family unit living in an, do you see where I'm going? Am I confusing? I don't know how to line them up so that they all make sense, so that someone coming in to do an ADU can have the expectation that they're gonna have that second sewer fee attached to their property once they build that ADU.
Because is a kitchen what makes it?
Well, and that's
Mm.
kind of the discussion we've had between community development and public works ongoing over the past couple of years is that if it has eating facilities and bathing facilities and, and it's a livable separate unit that you could rent to someone, then we would consider it a full accessory dwelling unit that would be charged a separate sewer fee, regardless if your mother-in-law is living there or whether you are renting it out to someone, outside your family. I don't know how to define that properly so that it works across all of our codes together.
You're saying the way it's worded right now does not work.
Well, because this one may or may not contain a secondary kitchen. So if I created an ADU that doesn't have a kitchen, then that
Mhm.
wouldn't be legitimate to rent to a third party. So then there's no flat standard as to, yes, this is, no, this isn't. So each one is individualized. So we can't look at anything and standardize it and know whether or not that should or should not have that additional sewer fee. Especially with all the ADUs that are going to be, potentially popping up. And it's something that the town has struggled to track in the past.
Mhm.
And then to build off of what the point that you're making, what is the difference between ADU and accessory structure or use? Like, what's the difference between the two if ADUs don't have a kitchen?
An ADU can be used to inhabit, sleep in. An accessory structure cannot.
Can habit what?
You can inhabit it. You can live in it. You can sleep in it. An accessory structure, you cannot.
So the accessory ADU has plumbing in general, but doesn't mean doesn't necessarily have kitchen.
Correct.
Okay.
But one with a kitchen requires a separate sewer connection, is what you're saying.
What about
How do I define? Right, how do I define it? I mean, I can look at a site plan and know that it has a kitchen.
Right.
Right?
It doesn't
Is
say
that the
anything about plumbing.
criteria? But then this ADU may or may not, so.
This may or
I
may
would
not
say if it has,
nothing to do with plumbing though.
I would say if it has a bathroom.
What
In
were
the
you saying?
And
definition
sleeping
itself, it doesn't say
quarters.
plumbing.
Because
or,
I think
or.
it's
Do you need a
on
bathroom
that
to be a dwelling
definition, but
unit?
Do we have any fixtures in that?
We would have to cross-reference the building code to see what is required to make it an ADU to determine that. I don't have that information here in front of me.
And maybe we have a definition, we're just not, I'm not saying this is where we land, but one that is ADU with kitchen.
An ADU
and
without.
ADU without, which would make
well-
it clearer for you, right?
Right, what defines it between just a ADU mother-in-law or a multifamily property at that point? Is kind of the dividing line that I need, you know?
Well, I don't know.
Well, the
Yeah,
intent
well,
of
it is-
allowing an
it is-
ADU is not necessarily going to make a property multifamily.
Exactly, but
So-
But it can.
but it could.
And the sewer connection thing is real because we talked about that in the housing, during the housing discussion. About would you and when would you have two separate sewers if you have an ADU on a property versus one? Like that was a discussion that came up during the housing
Is-
discussion.
Is that really detached? It has to be a detached unit to have a separate sewer?
Not necessarily, I mean, take a townhome. I mean, we
Okay.
have 4 units in a building and they're each a separate sewer. It really just,
But we're just talking accessory dwelling units. So the question we need to kind of focus in on that is if it is a separate, I'm just asking.
separate building.
A separate building, then it has separate sewer.
See, townhouses, things, condos, things like that have their own set.
Right, but this is, they're not ADUs. This only deals with ADUs. So I think however the fee structure is, maybe needs to be looked at if we're clear here.
So on your end, what determines the separate sewer connection?
A separate building?
Right now, it's considered in the fee schedule, it's written as a multifamily residence. If I have more than one family that potentially could live on a parcel, they get charged multiple base rates for each residential.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So if
saying?
it's hooked, even if it's attached and you have a separate family, that's what she's talking about.
Yeah.
Right.
Then,
so-
then it would be, you'd
Right,
have.
but an ADU is not going to be considered multifamily on any parcel unless and until they are on a property that's zoned multifamily and they put more than one. So that's one of the things that we talked about in chapter 3, where, we were in the R1 zone, you can have an ADU that doesn't make it multifamily, but then we had the discussion with the multifamily zones, do we want to allow more than one single family home on that parcel and still call it multifamily? And that would be considered multifamily. So I think the best way to answer your question would be the zoning would determine whether it's multifamily or not and how many units they actually put, because just having an ADU is not going to make it multifamily.
Whether you have two different families on that property or not. The
Okay.
zoning doesn't say that.
Yeah, and we can't.
If they're separate build,
They'll only have one tap on the sewer main. But historically, it's been that if it is a rentable, livable space, in addition, now I have 2 families utilizing the sewer system and therefore they're paying 2 base rates for that utilization. You know what I'm saying?
on a,
Single parcel. But then it makes it hazy gray because if we're changing the way we're wording it, then we have to go back through all of the ones that are already being billed that way. If we're going to consider it only by zoning, that's very different than the interpretation that has been used in the past.
So in the past, it's always been considered multifamily if they have an ADU.
Or if they have a livable space, I mean, because not all ADUs are, well, I mean,
yeah,
But I guess my question back to that then is, what happens if they go back and forth? So if I understand correctly, you're saying that let's say somebody puts in an ADU and they have their family live in it, you're not going to consider it multifamily.
It is though, because it's a livable unit, whether it's your mother-in-law or whether you're
No matter
renting it
what,
out.
you're considering it multifamily for sewer connection.
Right.
Okay. But let me look at something because that question might be answered in chapter 4 if I remember right.
I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but in the past, single family residence, 750 square feet maximum. Mother-in-law quarters is what they call it, or guest house. And now with the new laws, now we have ADUs that are allowed on single family residence properties. And as soon as you add a kitchen, now you have the ability to have multiple families on that property, whether it's zoned that way or not, because that's the new laws. So,
Correct.
and their square footages have been up to like 1,400 now on a single family residence as an industrial dwelling unit. So as soon as I'm with Virginia, as soon as you add a kitchen, that's an ADU. If you don't have a kitchen, it's a guest house.
That's essentially the way that we've run business in the past and the discussions we've had with the site plans that have been presented over the past few years.
Right, and I see what you're saying. The question is that in conformity with state law as it is today, because state law changed?
Right.
So,
I think what Craig is saying it is, that's in conformity with state law, but is our definition of accessory dwelling unit connected with that? Because Craig, it sounds like what you're saying, that in the new, with the new state law, once you add a kitchen to whatever that structure is, it's now considered a separate livable unit. Unless it should have its own sewer and utilities.
but if it's attached to a house, is it required to have a separate tap?
Well, that's an add-on. That's a
Mhm.
remodel
It
add-on.
depends
That's
on
not a-
how much it can handle, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a remodel and an add-on. They wouldn't consider that an ADU. You'd just be adding rooms to the house.
Unless it had a separate.
Separate
entrance
kitchen,
exit.
yes, it is.
If it's a separate kitchen. Yeah, I guess if you had 2 kitchens to the house, yeah, we're gonna do it. Call it ADU,
Yeah, basically.
attached or not.
Well, you're saying it can't be.
Well, no, I'm just saying, I'm just asking if it's an attached ADU with a kitchen, does that require 2 sewer taps?
No, I wouldn't say it does.
I
I think it requires 2 fees, but not 2 tabs.
That's right. So you can't really charge them, but you can if it's a separate unit.
Just when you build,
Capacity issue.
most homes
That's what I
are
thought.
built
Yeah.
have a plenty large tap to handle quite
More-
a bit
More than they,
what a single family would use. So it doesn't become a construction problem if they build an ADU with a kitchen and all of the, showers and everything, right? But now I have 2 families creating that volume that is going to the sewer system. And so therefore the fee schedule was set up so that it could account for that volume that's going to the plant. Even though there's not 2 separate taps, there's
Yeah,
not
I
2
see what
separate
she's saying.
capacity fees, there's not 2 separate connection fees, but the monthly usage fees are assigned.
but that's
as multifamily.
That's, but you can't consider the zoning multifamily.
Right,
That's right.
right. I totally agree. But then how do we line up the definitions so that when somebody comes in for an ADU, they know that they have the expectation that they fall under that fee schedule line item as well?
So I guess my question to you is, do you want them to be required to have 2 separate taps for an ADU?
No, I mean, and I don't want to bear that expense on them either to construct 2 separate.
Right.
taps.
And
We don't
what I
want-
would say is, when we get to that section in chapter 4 with ADUs, we can just put something in there that states that.
That
And I
works.
think that would be the simplest
It's
way to
better
do it.
than definition.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it in definitions. I would put it in that section of chapter 4 under ADUs, because that's going to be where the vast majority of people look at what the requirements are for it, rather than just a definition.
For me,
If nobody's living in the ADU at the moment, do you charge somebody?
Yes, because I can't tell you whether somebody's living there or not. It's a
Yeah.
parcel on off.
Right, right.
Okay. Do you have any other questions?
So basically, well, I think it's a decent discussion to have. No,
Yeah.
I thank you, Virginia.
Thank you.
So do we don't change anything. We just need clarification over in chapter 4.
I think that's the best way to do it.
In that one today, those in definitions also. The ADU.
Yeah, so do you want to talk about that now with definitions, or you want to talk about that when we get to ADUs?
Talk about it.
I think let's wait because we can always go back and add it
Okay,
as a definition when we get to the ADU
okay.
and tiny home portion. It would be a better place
Okay.
to have that conversation.
I have a couple questions. On page 6, on the definition of bedroom, does it have to have a closet?
One of those real estate questions that nobody ever has a definitive answer for.
Well, yeah, I think that one would fall under real estate and potentially the building code, if the building code has any definition of it as
Yeah.
well.
It's one of those, I would think it should have a closet, but I'm not 100% sure.
You could have an armoire, you know,
Yeah. Yeah, you can have a wardrobe, you can have something.
okay. And then on page 18, floor area. Is that the area that you state when you're selling a home, or is that not necessarily the same?
That was one that was requested. There's some more clarification, so of all the floors of a structure or building as measured by exterior walls, what?
That's what we said
the other
day.
Yeah.
We said the other day, last time, to have it exterior walls.
Okay. So that goes into, figuring out the lot coverage and all that, but that's not necessarily what when you're selling a home. What,
Square footage is determined by the exterior.
Exterior walls.
So it's
Oh,
measured
okay.
by the exterior. That's
put
gonna
in
be your-
garage or,
No.
It dep-
a
that-
lot-
okay.
You like, if you have a house that's 1,400 square foot and it has a 2-car garage, that's another 1,400 square feet
Is
is.
the livable.
Size of your house.
Okay, gotcha.
Whatever the garage is not added into the square footage of the house.
Okay. All right. But floor area, that would include the garage.
It's not
The-
defined as livable space, so it could, by this definition, include the garage.
Okay.
Correct.
Gotcha.
And I believe coverage would include the garage as well.
Okay.
Yes.
Mhm.
And then on
Yeah.
page 20 for a group home, you have more than 6, but less than 10 individuals. So that's specifically 7, 8, and 9. I take it.
At least 7, but not more than 12.
Is that correct?
I don't, if that's, I
Where-
don't know.
Yeah, and these numbers a lot of times are pretty standard across definitions on there because when you start getting above certain numbers, then it becomes a different type of facility for a lot of reasons, not just for zoning reasons necessarily, but building codes, fire codes, all sorts of different things like
Okay.
that.
All right. And then my last question is, do we have any scenic easements in town at the moment?
Any scenic easements?
Yeah, like, as this,
It's a good question. Virginia's saying no. Okay,
okay. Anybody else have any questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Page. Under. Top number is 13, under density transfer, there's a note there that said. we allow this in all subdivisions, not just PADs, that's another mess. So I just didn't know if we should just leave it because it was a mess, I just didn't know.
Which one was it? Sorry.
Oh,
Creating of all or part of it permitted, just to density on a
Oh.
parcel to another parcel or other location in the same. PA, it says parcel says PAD and it says we allow this in subdivisions, not just PADs. It says this is another mess. So is it a mess?
Oh.
Just leave it as parcel? Since it's not, it applies to other than just PADs. I like the comment.
And the same. Well, how could you, that doesn't make sense.
Of the permitted density.
In the same PAD.
When you have, thank you,
Mhm.
like when you have a parcel that has a large wash
Yeah.
going through it and we allow that density to be accounted for in the buildable area that would have been allowed for, or at least some portion of it, I forget what the true
Right.
calculation
Gotcha.
was, but
I
a
would
portion
keep it
of that density was transferred because, so you get more dense in the buildable area because you have unbuildable area.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and the tricky part of this, and I think the reason the PAD is in there too, is we're not gonna allow
Transferring between,
building across two lots anyway. So in a situation like that, we're gonna ask them to combine the lots. Now, where this would come into play more so on the PAD is you can and we'll see separate lots perhaps in a PAD, but that doesn't mean we're still not going to allow them to build across two different lots. But let's say on their master development plan, they're going to say, okay, well, we want to put this much here. It fits. Oh, wait a minute. Now we can't. Let's move it over here because the terrain, like you just described. Does that make any sense at all? Okay.
Mhm.
My next one was extraction. Removal or taken naturally first to plant, including, oh, sorry. no.
on which page?
Sorry, it's not 17. Land including but not limited to mineral, rock, sand, gravel, soil, other geological materials for commercial industrial use. Does this include the slag heap? Do we need to put something specific about slag?
I wouldn't in definitions.
Because.
Do we could address it.
I think it can include the slag pile the way this is written. Yeah.
Mm.
Way it's written.
Yeah.
As long as you think it does.
Oh.
Other geological,
Mentioning slag.
yeah, other geological minerals, materials, other geological materials, because that's,
It's tech.
yes.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
mean, we can throw in natural and unnatural, but it's argued, is that natural or is it unnatural? Because it's unnatural, but it comes from natural. So it's like, you know, how does that fit? But we'll throw that in there just to make sure that there
It's
can't.
man-made,
Yeah.
so.
We can throw it in there, make sure there's not any chance for an argument on it.
Right.
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 Yeah. We'll
Gotcha.
throw that terminology in there.
Okay.
Page 35. Public place. Has the same meaning prescribed in the smoke-free Arizona ARS 36-601-01 further regulated in chapter 10. I just didn't understand this, I guess, because to me,
Yeah,
it
I
sounds
don't-
like it's something about smoking. It's. And public place feels like a broader thing, or maybe that's.
Well, I think it's defined.
Yeah. The way this one was written was specific to
Mhm.
the smoking requirement that came about a number of
Yeah.
years ago.
Right.
But I see what your question is. Yeah, could it be broader than that as a public place? But
Smoking in public places, I don't know, but it felt like a very broad category with a really specific narrative.
Kind of like the marijuana one.
so I
Yeah.
think,
So I don't know what the answer is.
so we do define public open space, which is
Mhm.
different and it's more general.
Mhm.
It just felt like a very broad category with a real specific.
Yeah.
definition.
Yeah,
I
but I
could say
think, I think
public place
the
on
public open
parking.
space on page 33 broadens that definition of what I think you're thinking is public
Mhm.
space in a broader content.
So maybe like
I
in
could see
the
what-
ARS that this refers to under public place, there has a definition that we can use because it should, I would think.
Maybe it goes, that smoking thing goes under,
I was talking about something in town code too.
yeah.
I could, like you said, maybe it's a smoking public place, so I could say public place.
I think that's
not
what that,
smoking.
I think that's what the intent of that public place definition was, because there's other definitions that
Yeah,
are more generalized, like public places.
Maybe public place like,
I'm not smoking.
Yeah,
must,
we can do that.
so it refers to that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, Forty. Sign with a comment, we wanna say visible from outdoors, i.e. around all weeks if they put inside the building. And I like that option of like. About the visibility of sign.
what's the definition?
Sorry, signs, any outdoor.
Just signs, okay.
Located outdoors or visible from outdoors
Oh,
and is used to advertise, I guess it's.
Oh, gotcha.
Confirming that I like the visible. That's,
it means like if you could see a sign through the window,
yeah. That's what it sounds
that means we'd
That
have
may
to
not be
regulate
All
with our
two
sign.
outdoors,
thing.
like if it's inside and you see it, is that it? Outside, is that what
I
this
think we
means?
do a little bit as far as like how big they can be.
Yeah, to me, the visible from outside is like you have a big glass window,
And
right?
it's- and
And in the
it's-
back of the store, you have this huge
Illuminated.
illuminated Walgreens or whatever it is, right? That you can see from outside. So then they're trying to skirt the signage.
Yeah, and that,
Regulate.
that kind of comes down, I think, to the intent. If they're purposefully trying to do it, yeah, they're
Mhm.
trying to circumvent it. But
It's
if,
used to advertise, so if
you know,
you
if
can
they-
see it from the outside and it's inside, then it's advertising. It could be.
I don't know.
if they, you know, if they have really clear, clean windows and you're walking by and you look in and you see one of their display signs up there, does that count?
That's,
Right?
we have,
So we got to be
Mm.
careful on how we want to do that.
I'm not sure what one. You may.
We'll look into that one.
I had one other question on page 21, incentive zoning. How does that actually work? Like what would be an
what's the
example?
definition? Sorry.
Incentive zoning.
Incentives.
Oh, I see.
So that is something, you know, I think we may have talked about last time with development agreements where, you know, if they're asking for something or we're asking for something, it's kind of a little bit of a give and take on, you know, okay, you guys are going to do this, but okay, we'll do this. And so it's usually has to do with development agreements and that kind of stuff. But also now that we have the new housing plan, and some of the stuff in there is talking about incentives for low income housing or however you want to describe it, that will go into that as well. So if they're going to provide, you know, X amount of low income housing, then they get more density or they get reduced setbacks or they get something like
Okay.
that. So that's where that'll
All right,
apply.
okay. Anybody else have any questions, more questions or comments? Not, I'll entertain a motion for chapter 2.
So I kind of have a question, since we had a couple of suggested changes. So do we want the motion to say we approve this with according to the discussions
Yeah.
we had tonight with the proposed changes. Is that the kind of motion you would like? Okay. Okay, I move that we approve chapter 2 definitions with the proposed changes and additions from the committee from the committee.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, it is passed. On to the council. All righty, chapter 3, that's zoning districts.
So again, this is one, still working on formatting and all the good fun stuff like that and numbering, making sure everything matches. And especially referencing when something references another code, like something's referencing chapter 4 here on page 9. You know, I'm gonna have to go, I still have to go back through and make sure that actually matches, because a lot of the chapter 4 numbers are gonna be changing. So anyways, still working on that. But otherwise, other than that, there's whatever we talked about previously, is what was done. So unless you guys saw something else, or then I think mhm, on the top.
Single family resident alternate R1A. I believe this is the section that we talked about that mostly covered last time. And we talked about this district having different setback than the other districts from the historical ability of homes in that area to build to the lot line on the back and on the sides. And I don't see under the
I think it was only on the rear, wasn't it? Because most
Mhm.
of them are up to the alley. I'm not sure the side setbacks were changing.
yeah. On the,
Oh.
it's
So it should,
most of the. at least
rear
the
should
big-
be what, 3 feet?
Most of
No.
the garages abut on each other on the side as well as on, they go back to the alley and they butt, like my neighbor and I have about this much between our two garages. Houses look like
Which
the
you don't-
one building.
Right,
That's
it's
right. Ours looks like one building, but it's two. So anyway, but definitely the
Rear.
rear
Rear
at the
should,
minimum, and I guess to me, the sides,
I think, I know we changed this.
I think we have to be kind of careful with the sides.
for the accessory dwelling, maybe that's where I'm missing.
Yeah,
So
For the-
this is for the main structure. So
It's not
chapter
your main
4 has
structure.
the accessory dwelling units.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay. Like, I know we changed it somewhere.
I was like, oh, wait a minute.
Okay.
Anybody else with a question or comment?
so other than formatting and making sure that we have the right
Mhm.
reference to wherever we need to go on some of these,
Mhm.
where I can't remember if there were any other major changes. I don't think there were a lot in this one.
So,
The biggest is probably just taking out the whole historic district part and making it its own chapter.
Right, that was,
Yeah,
we talked
it-
about that last time.
Getting rid of the 2 other districts that
We don't
nothing is
use-
zoned.
yeah,
Right,
yeah.
yeah. Those were the
The
biggest.
neighborhood and,
Neighborhood and highway commercial.
right,
Mhm.
and make it all commercial. Right, so those were our big discussions, so I think,
I'll entertain a motion then.
I move that we approve chapter 3. Where's my- I know there was a motion. I move that we recommend approval to the town council, the updates of chapter 3 zoning district with this stipulations as stated in the staff report.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, then it carries. Okay, our next is Chapter 10, Historic Preservation District.
So we didn't make any changes in there, no content changes. We're just pulling it out of chapter 3 and making it its own chapter in the zoning ordinance.
I did have some questions, but now I don't know where I'm. I'm like, "Where's chapter 10. I know it's in. here.
Sorry, it's one,
No,
that's the middle of it. It's page 153. There you go. Right there.
oh, it's so short, no wonder. I couldn't find it. Okay. Oh, maybe that's the
There-
one then. Yeah. No, so yeah, again, it's just making its own a chapter and changing the numbering. Yeah, and then taking out the ordinance, so.
So all we did was move what was in chapter 3 to new chapter 10, Historic Preservation District.
Correct.
Is that a new chapter?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it's funny, it must have been something before, because it just now, when you look in the website, it just says chapter 10 reserved. But I think that's just because when they got rid of whatever was chapter 10, they didn't want to renumber all the chapters.
Okay.
So we're gonna take,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, so is there a motion from somebody on chapter 10?
I'll make a motion that we accept the chapter 10 as this.
Is there a second?
A second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. It goes forward. Next, we're going to be looking at chapter 1 zoning code of the town of Clarkdale.
Okay, so on this again, it shows a red line up on top, just I took out the links. So when I did that, it redlined them. There's nothing being changed. It just redlined them. I highlighted zoning map just because there is a little section here for zoning map and it says the map attached here too. There is no map attached. So I guess my question is, do we really want to have that attached to the actual ordinance or should we just keep it as a separate document?
And the reason being is, there's no real need to make it a part of the ordinance. The zoning map is a zoning map. It's, it is what we use. It does change. So there's not a reasonable need to say it's adopted as part of an ordinance in the ordinance. Because if any changes happen to it, it is with an ordinance change. So
Yeah, I like the idea of this being here. I like the accessibility of being able to click onto this, and go to the zoning map if you're in this section, but I get what you're saying about that if you change the map, you then have to change.
right, coming in there to
Which
change it.
is
Yeah.
too, But I like
Mhm.
the idea of just having the thing that says zoning map, so maybe we can make sure there's a link.
Yeah, we can put it
Yeah.
easily in, yeah, absolutely. And that should be standard anyways. We'll
Yeah.
do, if that's not already happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does there need to be a reference to the zoning map? I know like my cemetery policies and rules, they don't have the link or a document attached, but it does reference that that there is one and it's maintained here so that there's like a legal path to get to where that is and who records the official document of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's required here, just a question.
Like I said, it's not even
Good.
attached here.
Yeah,
If
so-
you have it going to this chapter, it is literally not in here on the website.
Typically that kind of adoption happens in the general plan.
Okay.
So the general plan adopts a land use map and the zoning map as
Okay.
well. And so that's kind of where that usually lives.
Mhm.
Makes sense?
I have a
But
question.
having a link then takes you to where it's referenced. So I think that link is all we need.
I have a question on page 1 under B. Blah, blah, health, safety, morals. What what do you define morals there?
Oh, we should. That's old school.
Yeah, that is very old school. Usually you see health, safety and welfare. Um, morals is very hard to define with
Yeah.
everybody has.
Should we
Very,
else,
very
so-
Strike that out?
Yeah, we can take that out.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Thank you.
Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion then. Oh,
Oh. Okay, hold on.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Hang on. I'm so sorry.
What?
I had one more. So I highlighted, page 6 on the top there, it talks about alterations and then restoration. So I don't understand why they're different percentages, and maybe it's just my lack of understanding, but I don't understand why when you're restoration, you can't exceed 60% of the value of the structure. But when you're altering, you can't exceed the aggregate cost of 50%. I just don't understand why those aren't the same. Anywho, just seems like it would make it easier. And I don't know what, I mean. Okay, sorry. But yes, that's something when I was going through, and then, right, that's how I feel. That's the question. It should be 50 or 60. We'll have to look into that, but,
See if that, there's a.
mhm. Yeah,
So the comment is just making them consistent.
yeah. That would be my,
Leaving them this way if there's a real.
yes, yeah. I
Okay.
guess I was hoping some. I didn't know why, so I was, and then, right. And then about the changes, that it's saying that a non-conforming use may be changed to a no less restrictive non-conforming use, provided all the other things. Why would you continue non-conforming uses? It just seems like, I don't know.
There are situations when something can never become a conforming use because of size of lot or.
I suppose, or say it was like historically residential and then got rezoned whenever the zonings got put in 20 years ago, and now it's commercial. But historically, it's, I don't know.
100
I'm
years
just
ago.
100 years ago. But say now maybe it's commercial. I mean, I could see where. But the changes in
Cause it's still,
use isn't, I don't know. It just seems.
That one's basically saying that, if it's non-conforming, typically you go change a use, you have to now make everything conforming, not necessarily just for zoning, but potentially anything else. What this is trying to say is, if it's non-conforming, you can't change it to a more restrictive use, meaning you can't go from like a home occupation to a full-on commercial use. Because that's
That makes sense.
more restrictive. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So that's what is
But you
preventing
could
from
go
happening.
less.
You can go less restrictive. So if you go home occupation to just internet sales, that's less restrictive use. That's the best way to describe that.
All right. I'm done.
this is chapter 1. Recommend approval to the town council, the updates of chapter 1 zoning code of the town of Clarkdale with the stipulations as stated in the staff report and with any comments that have been made this evening.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Goes on. Right, chapter 4, general provision.
Okay. Everybody have coffee?
Yep.
Bring some for all of us. All right,
There.
this is a mess right now, so we apologize. There was a lot in here. Kind of to get started, it starts right off the bat with accessory structures. I think it's important to kind of start with more general requirements, the applicability, use restrictions, talking about, permitted uses versus conditional uses, what they are, where they're allowed, when they're allowed, what the process is. It's super general in nature. And then we'll go into accessory uses. And what those are, what the intent of those are. Unspecified uses, basically, somebody comes in, wants to do something that's not in a permitted or conditional use, then we'll look at it, see what it is. If it's really, leaves us scratching our head or whatever, doesn't fall into this or that, but it's in the gray area, then it's something that can go to the planning commission to say, okay, we think it fits best here. So we want to make it, conditional use, or we want to make it, you can do it as a permitted use because it's similar enough to another permitted use. So we have that language in there. Any questions or concerns on that? Non-conforming lots of record. It's just basically, stating that what, the establishment of a lot, development of a lot has to meet setbacks, lot coverage, height for whatever zoning district it's in. As you see, number 3 right there, it's what we mentioned a little bit earlier. If there's 2 or more lots and the development's going to go across those, they need to combine them. We don't want buildings across lot lines. That pretty much negates setbacks and those requirements. Combined lots, another thing we want to avoid is dual zoned lots. They're a mess. So if they're going to combine a lot, they have to have the same zoning. If they don't, they need to rezone one or the other before they can combine them. That gets really, really messy. Any lot that already is dual zoned, they want to come in and do something, we're going to ask them to rezone it to one or the other before they move forward with their project, and whatever zoning fits their project the best. Or it could even be a completely different zone that's not currently there. So that's kind of what that's talking about, all of those, just to put them in the code so that they're there, so people can't argue that, well, it doesn't say I have to do this, so you can't make me. Same thing with redividing of recorded lots, kind of the same situation, that kind of same general legal stuff on what that looks like. You can't create a non-conforming lot. You have to go through the minor land division process, which is in chapter 12, which pretty much mimics state law on those requirements. The next page, page 185 on the bottom right corner, number 3 at the top of that is highlighted. The question is lots that are combined and redivided multiple times. So if somebody comes in, they have 2 lots, it has to be the same owner, they combine it, and then later they say they want to split it again. Then they combine it another time and say, no, I don't want to do this, I want to split it again. Do we want to allow them to keep doing that? It's not a common situation, but it can and does happen.
Oh, yeah, there was one years ago in on Mescal Spur that happened. They combined it and then they didn't do anything. And then they wanted to resplit it again.
What are the
For whatever
pitfalls of,
reason, I don't know what happened. Yeah.
What's the detriment of allowing
I don't know that there's a really hard and fast detriment per se. But somebody could combine a lot and then split it differently than a way it was already split before to either get more on this one property. That's not the only way to do it. All they have to do is a lot line adjustment, which is a lot easier anyways. But, I mean, just off the top of my head, I can't say there's anything that's super detrimental. I mean, if they try to come in and do it to try and circumvent subdivisions or something like that, we'll catch on to it and we already have provisions to stop that. It's just one of those things that I've seen in other places before. It's not uncommon to have this kind of language, but this code never had it before. So that's why I wanted to bring it to the committee.
There a legitimate reason something like this? Like I thought I was gonna combine and build a big house and then I realized I'm not, and so I want to split it
Split it
again.
and sell 'em.
All houses.
That's where I was going. Yeah.
Yeah, like,
and-
I mean, I could see somebody thinking, oh, I have this big ambitious plan and I'm gonna combine my lots, and then I realize that's too ambitious and I'm now gonna split it back out. And
Right.
And do we really care? I mean, do we want to stop somebody from doing that with their own property as long as it's conforming lot?
Yeah, as long as it meets all the other,
Yeah.
right. And yeah, we would have to make sure that it does conform, otherwise they can't do it. And, we'd tell them that too.
Anyway.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So that's why I wanted to bring it here. Like I said, it's not a make or break it. It's not, anything. Most people who do this do it in an unintended situation anyways, like you just described. I'm going to combine them and build one house. Well, no, I'm not. I'm going to, so most people who would run into this situation, which again is not frequent, aren't going to be doing it to try and get away with something. Greg, can you hear us?
Yes.
Yes, I can hear you.
do you have any other thoughts?
No, that's a messy chapter.
All right. So we want to strike through that one?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So moving on then, access and street requirements. That's basically saying that, any newly created lot will have access off of a public street or a easement and access easement. Of course, those easements will have to be to town and or fire standards, meaning that it has to be able to fit a fire truck down it, not just a little tiny narrow truck that somebody might own or whatever. So anybody who creates a new lot is going to have to do that. The easements, especially, if they're not owned by the town, they're private access easements, who's going to maintain that? And that maintenance is important for emergency responses more than anything. So, if they have a private easement and they don't care that there's 2-foot potholes the whole way down it, but you can't get a fire truck down it, that's an issue. So we want to make sure that they clearly state who's going to maintain that easement for access.
For example, we have an easement on our property. And so there's access to a lot next to us that's not developed. So do I have to pave the easement or what?
No, there's
Who's
not,
responsible for, it's just a dirt right now.
there's no requirement to pave an easement. As long as it, vehicles can get down it that need to get down it, whether it's property owners who have legal access to it or emergency services. Okay.
It's still your maintenance where it goes by your property.
Right.
It is your responsibility. That easement is part of your property.
Oh, so I have to clear it, make
Yep.
sure it's kept clear?
Yep.
If it's part of your property and your access, yeah.
Is it possible though, you say that the adjacent is not developed currently, right?
Yes, it's
So
vacant. Yeah.
if we have someone come in to develop it, that fire could require that easement be upgraded for the fire trucks to get in and out. And then you would have to have some sort of agreement with your neighbor as to the maintenance of it.
Correct,
At that
correct.
point.
correct.
So I would have to pay to have it paved?
No, it's
But you wouldn't
not.
necessarily have to pave it. No, no, there's nothing that says it has to be
Okay.
paved.
It just has to be maintained so that a fire truck can get down it, which means gravel probably.
Yeah,
in that, I mean, I live in that kind of area where I have a lot behind us that the access goes through our property. We have to keep that easement open.
Yeah,
and
you don't,
clean.
you don't want, when it talks about the maintenance of it, the surfacing has to be able to accommodate a fire truck. So you don't want, not that anybody would do this, but, you don't want feet of beach sand on there that the fire truck can't get over. Or another good example is the gravel that you see on a runaway truck ramp that nothing can drive through.
Right.
But you can't have, gravel that's so thick that the fire truck can't get down it. So that's the kind of stuff that would be looked at, as long, it doesn't have to be paved, but it has to be able to have accessible by emergency services.
Okay, all right.
All right. Continuing on kind of the same stuff, we won't issue building permits for any lot that doesn't have access, whether again, it's public street or recorded easement, and provides that emergency access that we were just talking about. So back to your example, if somebody comes in on that lot and wants to build something, we won't issue that building permit until the fire department says, yeah, we can get access. We're satisfied with it. Last thing on there.
So I bought the property from somebody else. And so at some point when they were developing my property and there was a need for an easement, that the town said you can't build unless you agree to this easement. Right? Or
I don't know what it was like in the past, but this kind of just reinforces it moving forward, that because there are properties out there that have been broken off, subdivided or not part of a subdivision or split off or whatever, that might have just a little 2-track access to it. And yes, it's an easement, but it's not a very accessible easement.
Okay.
So this is just making sure moving forward that can't continue to happen.
Especially when somebody's ready.
Right. Yeah. It just protects everybody, not just the town, but also the property owner.
okay. All right.
In some instances, so I'm envisioning, here's Alan's property, here's an easement that takes somebody to this property. I don't know if that's really what. So it essentially, potentially is a flag lot. If this property actually owned the easement, this would be considered like a flag lot versus having it. Getting the visual.
Number 3 on there is basically, if town council decides to grant a rezone, they can require dedication of right-of-way, utility easements, any other public improvements that are reasonably necessary. We'll see that a lot with subdivisions and, their streets and stuff. Okay, if you're going to make them public streets, they have to be built to our standards, and you have to do this before we can accept them into our system. Utility easements are common. Obviously the utilities have to run to the property, so you make sure there's an easement that they can access their equipment and their service lines and all of that. So that just kind of reinforces that also. Next one is site suitability. Basically, if any property is determined to be unsuitable for development due to who knows what conditions might be out there, topography, flooding, soil, anything like that, the person's going to have to come in and make sure that they prove to us that they can mitigate those issues to develop and not have those issues become larger or become somebody else's problem. This is not something that you see very often, but unfortunately, there are properties out there that it can happen on. So we just want to put this language in there. It's not to say that they can't build on their property, but they have to make sure that they mitigate any of these potential issues. We don't want to issue building permits for somebody and turns out that their soil was too soft and they're on a side of a hill and their house slides down it in 3 years. So that helps prevent that. The next page for yard, lot, and area requirements, I don't know why this changed to blue after I saved it and sent it to Clover, so just disregard the color. It means nothing. I don't know why that happened. Because, Word is smarter than us, even though it does this. Well, we want it red.
Evolving.
So don't pay attention to the color on this one. So again, this is just kind of, putting some of this legal stuff in there. Basically, no building can be constructed unless it's authorized to be constructed there. If you can't put a factory in the R1 zone. So that just kind of reinforces that, and saying that if there is required open space or yard areas, you can't go below the minimum. So if we require minimum 20% open space, you can't just come in and do 12%. Moving on, yards. Yards should remain open and unobstructed. Landscaping, accessory structures, not going to be considered those obstructions. Yards and open space are basically parcel specific. So you can't have open space on this property and say it counts on open space for this property. I say that cautiously because there's very few exceptions that can happen. Usually if and when it does is within a PAD because it's one project as a whole, even though they might have something here and something here. But that, again, chances are a PAD is going to have a development agreement and all of that gets ironed out in there. Any questions on that? All right. Now this one could potentially lend itself to discussion. So projections into required yards. So, and really the question becomes how far. So like awnings, fire balconies, fire escape stairs, window mounted units, roof mounted coolers or suspended coolers off the side of the roof onto the side of the house or similar things. Where we put in there, they can project up to 5 feet into a side or rear yard, but not be any closer than 3 feet to a lot line. That's pretty standard. You don't want somebody's air conditioning unit to be all the way up against the property line, but it's fair to let it come out off the side of the house a little bit. Concerns on that? Questions on that? Comments?
Will the patio cover be considered one?
So patios are talked about on number 4. Porches, patio steps, and balconies that go between interior and exterior. So that comes into uncovered and covered. So the uncovered ones can project into any required yard, but again, they must remain at least 3 feet from any lot line. And then projections into a front yard, we did put 10 feet on that for primary building walls. So I think it's reasonable, we don't necessarily want somebody to have a porch all the way out to their front property line, unless you guys do. So, but again, that keeps that 3 feet, there are smaller properties out there. We don't want to say just because you have a small property, you can't have anything. So that's why we put that 3 feet to the property line. The covered porches and patios and those kinds of things, again, up to 10 feet into a required front or rear yard. That moves the 3 feet to 5 from a front lot line and 10 feet from a rear lot line. So if you have a 20-foot rear setback, you can go 10 feet into it as long as you still have that 10 feet. If you have a 15 feet, you can go 5 feet out. Correct. Front and sides have to remain open. Once they're enclosed, it triggers a whole bunch of building code stuff because then it becomes basically part of the structure. And
Yes.
so we want to make sure we put that. Right. Yeah. And now you have to meet building code requirements on how that is.
Right, left.
For multifamily, if you have any thoughts on this one, so this one, do we want to allow those porches and balconies to extend over? I don't remember off the top of my head what we said the required street landscape yard would be. I think it's usually 10 or 15 feet. But if they're, going to come over that landscape yard, but still be 10 feet away from the front setback, I think that's reasonable to allow them to do that. And again, keep it 5 feet from any lot line, doesn't go out more than 10 feet from the building. So you can't have a 30-foot balcony off the side of a apartment complex. And again, the front and sides remain open and not enclosed. All right. Last one on this is just all the projections comply with building and fire codes. Any required safety railings are permitted and not considered an enclosure. So if building code does require railings on some things, we're not going to count that as an enclosure. That doesn't say that it's now enclosed. All right. Accessory structures. Not the same as accessory dwelling units. Those come later. First part of it just says, they're permitted when incidental and subordinate to a lawful principal use on the same lot and complies with this ordinance, town codes, and fire district requirements. General requirements for them, not located in a required front yard. And if you remember, we just had this discussion at one of our last meetings that we changed the definition of front yard setback. Because right now, if you have 100-foot front yard, that's your front yard. You can't put anything in it, even if your setback is only 20 feet. And you guys just did a variance for
Right,
that
we
exact
did,
reason.
yeah.
So that's basically saying you can't, if you do have a 20-foot front yard setback and your house is at that 20 feet, you can't go put something in front of it. What if your house is at 50 feet back and you have a 20-foot, you have 30 feet that you can put something in front of.
Right, right.
Yeah. Anything less than 10 feet in height should be set back at least 5 feet from interior side lot lines. 5 feet from the rear lot line, and within the R1A zoning district, a rear setback of, did we not finish that one out?
No.
Okay.
That's
That's where so that's where we wanted to verify. So that's what you were talking about earlier. So what did we decide that setback was going to be? 5 feet from the center line of the alley or 5 feet from? The alley.
I think it was 5 feet from the center line of the alley.
Yeah, I think it was.
No, not into the alley. I just thought it was the rear lot line on the alley. I don't know
Just-
what 5 feet from the center of the alley means.
Because your alley is not
Oh.
really an alley.
Shoot.
Okay.
That wouldn't work.
Oh, wouldn't work on hers. And I think you're not there. There's others like yours too.
Yeah, and that's where it gets tricky is because if you do it from, if you say from the alley line, that's essentially the rear property line.
Right.
So I own part of the alley.
So are we going
Yeah.
5 feet from the rear lot line? Because I thought you were saying that they're built up to the property line. Okay, so we can put,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
it's zero,
yeah,
so
that's-
basically a zero setback. Okay,
Yeah,
that's all we need. to
Zero,
put then.
zero lot line setback
Okay.
on that, yeah.
So within R1A, a rear setback of 0. Okay,
Yeah.
That's right.
and then 5 feet from the main structure.
Yes,
Now, again, that's anything under 10 feet.
right.
Over 10 feet must meet all of the front, side, and rear setbacks for the principal building. So that prevents, super tall buildings being put right up on a property line or too close to a property line that may then encroach on a neighbor in various ways.
But,
Well, hold on.
I mean, they built to the lot line, I think. Maybe not, they had garage beam, they didn't actually build to the lot line. And like,
Because it's 2 stories, right?
it's, yeah, there's.
Is that-
garage beam.
And then a unit on,
They did not. build.
Okay.
yeah, I think they're back off of the lot line on that one. I mean, this is saying you don't want a tall building at lot line, even in the R1A.
Or even close to the lot line.
Yeah.
There's another one that's on Main Street, Morris House,
Who's?
Morris. On Main and 15th.
One on,
It's got in a garage, with a guest house, but I feel like it's a little tall. Maybe it's just 1 story. It just is a little, yeah.
but this is going forward to the future, so
Yeah.
we don't want to see that happen. We want them set. Yeah,
Right, yeah, we want to,
2 stories, you have to have a step back.
if you want to go up to 2 stories, you have to be set back the same as what your primary structure is. If
Right,
you don't have the
right.
room to do it,
If
then you
you're gonna
can't.
do 1 story, you can go to the lot.
Well, so
Up to 10
let me
feet.
rephrase that. It's not based on stories, it's based on overall
Right.
height of the structure. So if it's over 10 feet, even if it's 1 story, then you have to be the same setback as your main structure.
Well, is a typical garage, not like a carport, because those are typically like.
Typically, you're gonna have, your garage is gonna be 8-foot ceiling inside. And the pitch, the pitch of your roof, a lot of times, I think, Craig, has he gone?
he
Oh.
left.
Oh, okay. I think typically you'll see, on a standard, nothing special, 8-foot interior and about 16 foot to the peak of the roof.
That would require.
So that would require that garage to be the same setback as the main structure.
Yeah, and that is not the spirit of, like, my garage is not 8 feet tall. My garage is taller than that.
Well, that's just the inside like ceiling.
I know, but my garage is built to the lot line. And so if you put that stipulation on something, then nothing can almost be built to the lot line unless it's 10 feet tall only.
Correct.
That's to me is not within the spirit
Could-
of the historical district.
And I kind of agree because I'm trying to think of, I don't remember where my parents were on Main Street, that accessory unit in the back, I think was higher than 10 feet and it's right at 0 lot line.
So we could put that language in here too for that zoning district
Yeah.
that, basically can be a 0. But do you still want to cap the overall height at something?
Yeah, I think we do.
But I.
Like
feel
at
it needs to be
15?
effective.
The intent is for that we could allow a typical 1-story structure to be at lot line. But if you wanted a 2-story, that we would want that.
Right.
Because like,
But how do you write that where?
We just,
yeah,
we,
because like
well,
But like,
taller,
because of your,
for the tallest houses, because of the way my roof is pitched versus Selena's house, or I think of like the houses around the corner
Right.
for me, they're the exact same house as mine, but the exterior is different.
so
well,
could it be like, I think, wasn't there someplace, I don't know if it was in here, but accessory units were like 15 feet were the top height?
yeah, I mean, and we can do, again, don't quote me. I can find out from our building official what the standard roof peak height is on something like that, which I want to say is like maybe 16 to 20 feet.
Yeah.
And we can go with that, you can have in the R1A, you can have up to, let's say, whatever that standard is, 16, 18, 20 feet at a 0 lot line. Anywhere else, if
right.
it's over 10 feet, anywhere else, you have to meet your standard setback.
Yeah.
So, okay, we'll go with that. Did you write that down?
I think that's,
We'll check with Bob. I'm gonna say it's gonna range between 16 and
18
20.
and 20, but I think it probably around the 16 is where I think it's
Yeah.
going to land.
And we can send an email to everybody and let you know what that is.
Well, I think we're giving you permission not to go over 20. That's pretty high.
Yeah. Yeah, 20 is
Yeah.
pretty high.
So
Build a 2-story structure necessarily, but we
Right.
want to be able to have some. height
that's why I'm
support.
wondering
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
which,
Right, and just
15 or
keep people
16.
from not wanting to make that
Yeah.
assumption up there.
And it is just different only because like in my neighborhood, like my house is really tall
Right.
and somebody else's house is.
Yeah, but I think if you standardize around 15, you're doing fine.
Right.
And I believe that's what it was, because when we built the big guy,
What?
the big guy, I think we're at 15 is as high as we could go
Yeah.
across the top of the whole unit. And it's big.
I never met.
I think 15, we had to keep it at 15, even
Um,
though we have a big lower part.
Do you want to do the same on the side yard? So the side yard in R1A we left that at 5 feet. We were just worried about the rear at being at 0. Do we need to worry about the side in that district as well?
I mean,
For both?
so I'm
It is.
using my house as an example because literally there's this much room between my neighbor's garage and my garage. So if I was to take down my historic structures and wanted to put up a new ADU along the back,
Yeah, I think,
lose 5 feet of that?
Yeah, so keep in mind though, too, that this is just zoning code setbacks. If the building code or fire code requires a bigger setback between structures, regardless of what this says, that's gonna take priority, yeah. And typically you see that separation being 10 feet between structures.
Right.
So
Yeah, you don't
if
want
we
to
kept,
that
if
down.
we kept 5-foot side yard, then that's not gonna be an issue. Yeah.
yeah, I
Okay.
think you have to.
Hey, you're changing the way you're, the convention of I think, letters, you're using letters and letters.
I know, it's a worry.
Don't worry about that right now. We'll get it straight. Typically, so what you,
They have to reform it.
the way you'll see it is if you start a heading with a letter and then you do a sub, you use numbers, and then you do a further sub under that, you go back to letters. And then if you start it with a number, it goes to a letter and then it goes to, yeah, so we'll make sure all of that looks right. So, all right, let's go to E, F, and G. So
Oh, yeah.
that talks about, and I left a bunch of X's in there because E would apply to your typical single-family residential districts. Yeah, so any of the, R1, R1A, R1L, your total accessory buildings, whether it's just one or multiples, cannot exceed 2,000 square feet total. So if you have 5 accessory structures and you hit 2,000 square feet, you can't put 6 in there. Or if you put 1 at 2,000 square feet, you can't put another one in there unless you get a conditional use permit.
So if I'm on a 1/4 acre lot,
Yeah.
I have a 2,200 square foot house, I can build up to 2,000 square foot of accessory dwelling.
No, that's not accessory.
Accessory building.
Well, so the acreage doesn't necessarily, it would be your zoning. Your zoning is going to dictate,
Zoning was R1.
right? Then you can have 2,000 square feet of accessory structures, whether it's a single one or multiples.
Is that
Yeah.
2,000 in code or in law somewhere, or is that the new law?
No, that's was what we would put in the zoning. That's just for the,
Just
yeah, and it can be. And if,
my, half of the garage, look, think of the garage on my property, which is 4,000. So half of that, envision about half that size. It's a lot.
it can be, yeah. But I mean, you would have to meet, you'd have to be able to fit it on your lot too. It would have to fit.
It's basically a house size, yeah.
Percentages of yard and stuff too, because I mean,
Yeah.
think about if you had a 5 acre lot, right?
That's not so much.
Right, exactly.
Right.
So it's all perception based on the size of the parcel, because let's say I own, a residential lot or whatever out in the middle of the boonies we were talking about last time, where I've got livestock now and horses, and now I want a barn on top of a garage and a work shed and all of that, that 2,000 would get pretty slim pretty quick. And I've got plenty of room for it at that point.
Yeah, but if you're like on a 1/4 acre lot, you're not even gonna
Right.
remotely get to that 2,000.
So should this be defined per zone? Like,
Yes.
So it would be in the agricultural and whatever.
No. So this first one is we're looking more towards the single family zoning districts.
R1.
Move on to F, and that number goes up to 3,000 square feet, and that's where we're looking at the agricultural type larger lot districts.
About E and U 1,000 square feet. People can't get there anywhere because of the size of their lot. I'd hate to say, here's a rule that says you can put 2,000 square feet. Oh, I'm sorry, when you actually come to do it, you can only do 450.
But what about the lots that the people can go up to 2,000?
Well, that's.
Well, so you're saying any of our residential areas would be up to R1L, 2,000, anything below 2,000 it just needs a permit. If it goes over 2,000, it would need a conditional use permit.
Correct.
So I'll give you the example. I'll use my house again. If I were building that today, if this law came in, I would have to get a conditional use permit for that 4,000 square foot accessory structure.
Right.
But on the flip side of it, I'd be more concerned if you have a tinier lot. So you're restricted by how much room you realistically have and the separations, but you'd be filling up the whole thing, maximizing what you have, being allowed that 2,000.
You could, but you'd still have to meet all the setback
But to
requirements.
meet setback, lot coverage,
And
all of that.
separation
So,
between
I got the lot coverage in it.
Yeah.
lot coverage,
Wait, but this says I can put 2,000, I bought this thinking I could put 2,000 square foot accessory unit on my thing, not realizing because of the kind of lot they have that it's gonna be restricted below that.
So
Could you,
so can we put in there those something that talks about all those other parts, like referring to lot coverage, setbacks, separation in that language, so that doesn't happen. You see?
Yeah,
it,
we
like,
can
qualifier.
put simple sentences in there that says, all zoning district, development standards apply.
Yes.
Yeah. that's
Yeah,
it.
we can do that.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll do that on all of them. Are you guys good then moving on to F? If we make that the larger,
Yeah.
agricultural at 3,000, then manufactured home, zoning, drop it to, 750.
Right.
We're good with all
Of
that?
that same kind
Yes,
of language.
yes, we'll put it on all three of
For
them.
each one of
Okay.
them. I think that'll do it.
Yeah, that's.
Perfect.
Mhm,
Okay.
mhm.
I have a question. Does this apply to pergolas?
Yeah. It
So,
would be an accessory structure.
okay, because you say it's building. Pergola is not a building. Is it?
It would be an accessory, considered an accessory structure.
structure.
It is,
Okay.
yeah.
So,
H. It would be considered H.
under H?
Accessory structure constructed of reflective unfinished metal.
Yeah, anything, well, no, anything. Yeah,
It's kind of confusing because you're talking about buildings, and
But a pergola is,
you would consider a pergola a building?
believe it is.
where are we looking?
It's a,
Just like E or anything.
Where? Oh. Oh, yeah, we'll change that to structure, sorry, yeah,
structure.
yeah, any structure, that's just a simple,
Okay, so there's obviously a limit to how big a pergola
yeah,
you can
yeah.
build.
The limit there.
Okay.
will that create a conflict with the definitions because accessory structure, because the intent is to include ADUs as well as accessory structures. So
Oh,
if you label this as accessory structures, does that rule out the ADUs from that calculation?
Yeah. That's structure.
It- Accessory structures and ADUs are gonna be completely different
Different.
because
They're different.
what makes them different is
Still have the whole lot.
the ADU is a dwelling.
Right.
So without it being a dwelling, it's now an accessory structure and falls under that.
I want to put an ADU and a pergola. I still have to meet my
Yes.
lot use.
Yes.
my
So I could have-
My setbacks.
So I could have a primary, an ADU and 2,000 square feet of accessories.
If it fits on your lot,
If it
yes.
fits on the lot.
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
Yeah.
Soon as moving to the.
I live in a townhome, by the way, my.
Just to tell you, I have four. So
Somewhere.
I don't know. I think the day after this is
Yeah,
approved,
I
you'll
have
be in with.
four structures on my property. Okay, I have four structures. So I have the house, a detached garage, and a building that is an accessory structure
I mean-
outside of the big guy.
You'll be in the day after this is approved with building permits for all of this, won't you?
She's here, she'll understand it perfectly.
You said I could do this. All right, H basically just says any reflective or unfinished metals should be painted or, something on it so it's not glaring and blinding everybody. I is important. Accessory structures and uses may not be established prior to the principal structure. We don't want people to build a detached garage and then wait 5 years to put up the house. Because it does happen. accessory structures in commercial and industrial. So a lot of that's similar, not located in the front yard, at least 10 feet from the main structure, 5 feet from rear and interior side lot lines. Street side will be the same as the main structure in that zoning district. They can be 5 feet from the main structure if they meet the criteria listed, which is they're less than 200 square feet, construction with non-combustible or fire-rated walls, subject to building official and fire district approval, no impact to site circulation. And again, they can't be established prior to the principal structure being done. Any questions or concerns on that one?
What if a commercial business has a front parking lot in front of their building and they want to put a sunshade for their customers to park under, or maybe even a solar dual use? It would be eliminated though, because it's in the front yard.
It's a CUP.
And that might be the
But
answer.
it is-
That very well might be the answer, is that it's conditional use. If that's what
Yeah,
they want to
and-
do, they come in and it has to get a variance or whatever.
Yeah, and I think
Sure.
those are case by case basis. You know, we don't want to prevent them from providing that shade or that solar structure. So we'll make an avenue that they can do it. This is focused mostly on, you know, like putting storage containers out or sheds and that kind of stuff, not to prevent them from being able to do a shaded parking or something like that.
A quick question on the sunshades. Do they have to meet the 80-mile-per-hour wind requirement?
That would be a building code question, but likely, yeah.
Okay.
Attached accessory structures. So, you know, your attached garage, your carport, or anything like that that has a wall in common with the main dwelling is considered part of that dwelling when you're talking about setbacks and all of that. So your attached garage is part of your house. You have to meet the main setbacks for your house. And
Under B-
attached,
Yeah, under B, you have an ADU
Yeah,
again.
so that's
Would that
just
be in
saying-
another section or?
yeah, so that's just saying in here though, because it's talking about attached accessory structures, we did throw that in there on the ADUs. It can encroach on a site or rear yard if permitted in that zoning district's development standards. So again, there's more to it in the ADU section, but most ADUs are not going to be attached. Once you attach it, you know, except for Highlands has indicated they might be doing that. So,
Okay.
you know, as long as it's allowed in their development standards, then they can call it an attached ADU. And we can move that from here to the ADU section too, if it fits better in there. Move it. Okay. Yeah.
Think we
So there's no
because
confusion of it.
It should, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And then C is just kind of reiterating that, you know, your front porches, patios and decks, are subject to what was there before. Okay. And then I did highlight on page 192, number 2 is still under this. I found this one kind of interesting. Multiple dwelling units are required to have storage facilities as follows. 24 square feet per unit. One side must be at least 4 lineal feet, minimum of 1 exterior entrance, and conform to all other requirements. That's basically saying if we're going to allow somebody to build an apartment, they then have to build storage into it for each of their tenants.
Oh.
As the business owner of a storage unit, going, no. So
I haven't.
you're asking us whether we want the,
It makes, on some level, it makes sense.
It's fairly standard. I mean, I've military roamed around all over renting and that's standard is people rely on having that, sorry.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Okay, we can keep it. All right, next section, campgrounds and RV parks. So we pretty much took out anything to do with RV parks because we
Because it's
covered that
infinite.
in chapter 3 and put all of those development standards in there. We did leave, some of these things. So B, no recreational vehicles shall by any definition be deemed a residence. And use of such is prohibited in all zoning districts. That one's highlighted because it gets tricky. So, yeah, I don't think we want to allow people just to live in their trailer on the side of their house. But, RV parks by nature are supposed to be transient. I don't know of one that exists anymore that doesn't allow long-term residents, even if they say they're not going to when they come in to construct it. The reality of the world is there's a lot of people who live in their RVs and RV parks are where they go. So do we want to strike this and make it, that you can't, like, it gets tricky. I don't think, I know fire department doesn't want people living in RVs next to a house. They just don't. It's a safety issue.
But this
With
deals with
budgeting.
just campgrounds, this section.
It is for under campgrounds, but it's important, I think, to, broaden that discussion as a whole, because what do we want that to look like? We keep it in here,
We don't want campgrounds to be used for
long.
a resident.
Right.
Long-term.
And so we
It's
can
not,
keep,
not RV parks, so just campgrounds.
right. So we can leave that in here to clarify that.
This is just campgrounds, but does this in theory, if I pulled an RV into my backyard and somebody's living in it, is that this or is
No,
that?
that's someplace else.
It should be somewhere else.
That needs to be somewhere else.
And I feel like we need to have that on the books.
Yeah.
Whether we enforce it or not,
Right.
how stringently we enforce it or not, I don't know, but in the event we need to enforce that because you've got a dangerous situation, I think you need to have that on the books or else it's a slippery, you don't. have
Yeah,
anything
I
to-
agree with
agree.
you on
I
that.
agree.
I mean, I don't think anybody's
But-
gonna. go around and
But we
double
do
check.
have this someplace else, do we not?
We'll double check it.
I think we,
I did so much in here. I might have put it further down.
Yeah, I don't.
I'll have to look. C is the same thing. We need to move C. RVs used as a temporary residence during construction, as long as there's a valid building permit, that is common. So long as.
but it
built-
doesn't belong here.
No, this one needs to move. So we'll move that one as well. There's a section further down that I think it fits better in. So we'll make sure it goes in there. But we did leave, quite a bit of the campground stuff alone. And we just took out the references to the RV parks. Cause like I
Okay.
just said, we have the RV park standards in, chapter 3.
Right. No.
Mm-hmm.
But there might be someday, like, if we wanted to build out near, let's say out by Lower Tapco or out in that area, a campground, this would apply.
Or the train decides to do a campground, right? They have property down there. I don't
If they would do a campground, most likely they would do an RV park.
know. Right, but.
Yeah, but
They
you
could,
just say-
I mean, they could,
They don't-
yeah, they could.
You don't see a lot of urbanized campgrounds anymore.
No,
It's
yeah,
mostly RV parks.
yeah.
Okay. Section 4-030 lots in 2 districts. That's kind of saying the same thing. A is already kind of saying any existing lot has been developed prior to adoption. Where district boundary divides the lot, the more restrictive requirement applies to future development. if they do future development, we're gonna make them rezone to,
The more restrictive zone.
I don't know if I would say more restrictive. It's gonna be depending on the use and
Oh,
what the zoning
okay.
is. So,
Okay.
and then B, any existing undeveloped lot where a district boundary divides the lot is required to be rezoned to a single district.
I
So
think we said that.
we said that, so we'll strike that one, just make sure it's in one place. And I'm probably gonna move this back up to where that other language is, just so it's consistent in there.
Right.
Yeah. Next one is corner lots. Just making sure that corner lots don't obstruct any views, that there's a visibility triangle. It's a lot easier to draw it out than imagine it, but you know, let's say, how can I visualize this? You got one street. Here's your house. You got one street going this way, one street going this way. You don't want a bunch of stuff up here in the corner because this person won't be able to see and this person won't be able to see. So,
Yeah, we do, because I think I know of at least one resident over by my house that if all their stuff grows up, it would obstruct that corner.
and typically that measurement becomes 25 feet. So where this intersects and this intersects, right here, you measure 25 feet and that's where they can start putting stuff.
They can put stuff in.
They could, yeah,
But it
no
has to
taller
be,
than,
yeah.
and that's the next thing, no taller than 2 feet. So you can put, you know, a little 2-foot block wall or little decorative fence or little hedges or something like that. It doesn't have to be completely bare, but once you start going over that 2 feet, that safety issue becomes.
Right, so.
What about trees?
So if you plant trees, cactus, or anything that's like in that
Right.
corner,
And you'd be surprised. Clover and I have experience with this, and we've gone out and measured before. And that 25 feet may seem like a lot, but it's really not that far back when you
No.
get to that, where that would be. And it's not saying, you know, it's way back over here and right next to the house setback. It's not it. It's still pretty close out
I
there.
feel like I have a tree there.
You have- yeah.
I have a tree, but it's an old tree. And so I feel like maybe you should also say, like, if you have an old tree, it needs to be trimmed with
But
the
I don't think
branches
it would-
allows for that visibility.
Oh, above 2.
As, yeah, like,
Let 2.
But-
Yeah.
but I wouldn't do it here.
8 feet above floor line.
In that triangle.
Right, right.
Yeah, that would come into, that would fit in the landscaping chapter, and we could put under maintenance of landscaping, something like that. That, you know, you have to maintain that so it doesn't fall, and that's where that one would go.
Maintain that too, but.
Yeah, make sure that visibility. Because I think we did put something in the landscape chapter that requires maintenance of landscape.
But,
But be in landscape for required maintenance.
but what about I mean, I'm all for trees, don't get me wrong. But you get that trunk that grows larger and larger, it will obstruct a portion of that visibility triangle if it's, you know, 100-year-old mulberry, like with the big old trunk.
Well, yeah, anything existing is already there. We're not,
Right.
but you know, if somebody's gonna plant something,
Gotta be shorter.
They should be aware.
Anything-
that 25 feet back should cover them doing anything like
Right.
that.
Again, because there's this house that they've built right to the lot line. It's all a private easements. I got it, but that is going to be a problem when they grow up. There's no doubts about it.
but they didn't have a corner lot.
But their truck was so big, it had obstructed that intersection.
It was an 18-wheeler.
But that's,
Pull out into the street.
Yeah.
oh,
to see it
see
with
round,
the truck.
yeah.
I almost got hit a couple of, not nobody's fault, but it was just a giant black one.
Okay, we got it.
All right, good.
Well, we don't allow them. Oh,
You're good on reducing lot areas. That's just you can't reduce, you know, your size of your lot after a building permit that makes it not meet your development standards. All right, swimming pools. You don't want to allow them at all? Can't put it in your front yard. At least 5 feet from the main structure, rear lot lines and interior side lot lines. Street sides, same as main structure. We did verify this with fire department because they have to have that access surrounding and especially between the structure and the pool. So they're not carrying somebody and fall in the pool with them. So they're okay with that 5 feet. To prevent uninvited or uncontrolled access, they have to be enclosed by a solid wall, wood or chain link fence, not less than 5 feet or more than 6 feet. And then all swimming pools adopted or adhere to adopted building and fire codes. Building codes regulate swimming pools more than most anything out there. So that's where you'll see, you know, the door latch requirements and all of that stuff on patio doors and all of that. So we don't need to put it in here. We took out A and B because they don't necessarily need to be in there. It's, you know, strictly mostly to the building codes. We took away the 10 feet. Again, we verified with fire that they're okay with 5. A lot of places have gone to 5. The next section on payment by owner of professional services, I've seen that already in at least 2 or 3 other places of the town code. So we don't need it in here as well. All right. Walls and fences. This one got really messy. And it's always been really messy everywhere I've seen it. So, I personally didn't like how it separated all the different districts. It just kind of made it really confusing. This probably still is confusing, so I apologize. I've not seen a fence ordinance that's not. All right, so obviously if a permit is required, legible drawing, we need to see what they're doing. We did say that, you know, livestock fences are exempt from a permit requirement, but they do need to apply to all other stuff. A lot of the reasons for that is a lot of people will do interior property livestock fencing. We don't necessarily need a permit for that. Any existing fence with a previously approved permit can be reconstructed, repaired, or replaced if done in the same manner. It becomes unneeded hassle to require a permit because you want to fix 5 slats on your fence. So this just says if you've already had a fence permit, but you need to fix it and you're doing the same thing, okay, your permit still is applicable. It still applies. You don't need a new one. If you're changing it, yeah, you need a new one.
Can we add to 2 utilities? I need to know where the meter box is for the drawings. Otherwise,
Yeah.
I end up sending, if I get a permit in for a fence, then I have to send an operator to go find the meter box to tell me where it is so that I make sure that they're not building on.
Okay, so what do you want that to say? Or
Just to that the site, the legible drawing should include utilities.
okay. Because we do have it somewhere. Let me find it. Okay, yeah, we'll put it there.
Thank you.
That makes sense. Because yeah.
We have challenges, especially on some lots with crossroads because of where the water mains were laid. It's in the rear of the lot. And so my meter boxes are on the rear side of the lot and your occupants want to, or the residents want to build to their lot line for their fence, but then that obstructs our access to the meter box, which we have to do maintenance on. So it makes it really challenging, especially when they're not identifying it on their plans.
Right.
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 that's the
No,
case.
I gotcha.
Right.
You require that utility meters stay outside of fences?
We do. We make notes saying that they need to move it or it needs to be collapsible in the event of emergency, or that and that I can knock it down if I need to, essentially. If I can't gain access within 24 hours, that I have the right to.
But is there a way to do that up front?
In here, you mean?
I think that's on the approval of the permit.
Yeah,
There's-
it would
That
be-
has to be, then they have
Yeah.
to, would put that around it, so
Right.
it's accessible. You have to make it accessible, so you would do it as part of permit.
Right. Fence height, corner lots, same thing. And we'll verify that that section reference is correct. But basically, you know, a corner lot fence, again, you got to have that visibility triangle. I might need to reword that when we get further in because I have to. Okay, so fences in the front yards shall not exceed 4 feet in height within required front yard areas adjacent to streets. Anything that does exceed 4 feet may be permitted within the front yard if it's 80% open, means you can see through 80% of that fence. Sight distance triangle is maintained at the intersection, and that measures at 35 feet back instead of 20. And then it's 20 feet on a driveway.
Where are you at right now?
Page 199. Yeah. And then number 4 was already in there. So we left that, forward access. Where did I see that? Yeah, that was something we didn't take out. We just left that in there. I'm not 100% sure what that's referencing. That's why I didn't, number 4, the property is developed such that access to streets may be taken in a forward manner. Page 199, number 4. Yeah, that was already in the fence section. I just left it there. I meant to go look into it further, but I ran out of time. So we can do that and decide what we want to do with it.
So no backing in the streets.
Yeah, but you can't restrict, but that doesn't make sense that you can't back into a street in the fence section.
I know, I don't.
And we can't, you can back into streets. Yeah, so
Oh,
I got to look and see what that
But
really refers to before we decide.
If it doesn't refer to anything, we'll strike it.
Yeah. And again, so the 4 feet in height on the fences, the 80%, the sight distance. The upper 2 feet is. You can put one. Oh, let's see. I might have messed this one up. Let me.
So that,
Yeah, this one I meant to highlight so we could talk about the differences. So number 3,
the,
C. So the first part says, you know, it's in the front yard setback. If they are 80% open and they meet the sight distance triangle, or you can go up to 6 feet, so long as the top 2 feet
is okay.
is not solid. And that requires a conditional use permit. So that's what the difference is on that one. So if you want to put a fence in your front yard setback, it can only be 4 feet tall. If you want to put a 6-foot fence in your front yard setback, you have to get a conditional use permit, but the top 2 feet cannot be solid. So you could do a 4-foot block wall and the 2 feet on top could be like chain link or something. But you still have to have a conditional use permit for that 6
That would
foot.
be ugly as sin.
Leave front yard fences can't be taller than 4 feet.
We can do that.
Yes.
Like,
Okay.
that feels easier.
Okay. So then we will strike out C.
I think that's what we pretty much have,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
I would prefer that. Yeah.
Can you, looking at 3, the big 3, when I read that, I don't read it, so I can have it higher than 4 feet if it's 80% open and located
Not-
within.
No. If it's in your required front yard setback, it can only be 4 feet and it has to be
So it's
80%
right away.
open.
You
It-
can't build a block wall, 4 feet tall block wall.
Correct.
Oh.
Not in the
Right.
front yard.
It has to have some opacity to
Yeah.
it.
You could build right. 80% of it, 20% of it can be blocked.
Like the lower part.
Right.
Not exceed.
Depends on how.
If you can see through 80% of it, it could.
Yeah.
All right, so number 3, fences located along street side yards and exterior side yards. So you have an exterior side yard, but maybe it's not next to a street. It's just, I don't know, next to forest land or something like that. Or an alley, yeah. So fences in the required street side yard shall not exceed 4 feet. Unless otherwise allowed or with a conditional use permit. So there can be some instances where that side yard fence won't hurt anything to be 6 feet tall, but just to make sure, require a conditional use permit for it. Otherwise, if you do 4 feet, then you're fine. And then the same thing on the exterior side yard of a reverse corner lot shall not exceed 4 feet. You know what a reverse corner lot is? It can be kind of tricky. I got to make sure I explain it right. So a reverse corner lot is, let's say I have a corner lot, my exterior side is somebody else's rear lot. It's their rear lot line. I know it's hard to visualize it, but it is, I looked it up because it was already in the code, and then once I visualized it, it made sense. So
Oh, yeah.
basically one person's side yard is another person's rear.
Rear yard.
Yes.
It's the alley for each other. I mean, I've only seen it in alley. That's Kalila. My side yard is his rear yard.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
Right.
yes.
That's-
Yeah.
And that
And
could
is there-
happen on a corner fairly easily.
Yeah. Yeah.
It could happen on a corner.
It was
Yeah.
6 feet instead of an alley, it would be,
Well, I have a corner lot
right.
and it follows it by a street. And I have a 6-foot fence in the back. I mean, you can drive by it, right? And you can see my neighbor. So I'm like, what's the definition of exterior side yards?
Exterior side yard is basically you don't have another private property owner next to you. So it could be an example. It's not always 100% on a street. It most of the time is, but another example could be you have a corner lot in a subdivision, and there's open space next to you in the subdivision that's owned by the HOA. It's their, common area. And nobody's ever going to build right there. It's not a property that's going to be built in the subdivision. It's just part of their open area. That's an exterior side lot line.
Oh, or
And you could
if,
put
let's say you had
fence.
yeah. So like you had a trail that went between 2 lots.
But even like Selena's, like
Yeah,
her
I can
front
see that.
yard, her 6-foot fence doesn't start until almost the back of your house.
Right.
That's not really hitting your front yard.
And then
And-
multiple people have put up 6-foot fence that abuts a street.
Yeah. So keep in mind too, that, you know, if your house, again, so let's say you have a 10-foot street side setback, right? But your house is 20 feet. You can move your fence 10 feet and have it 6 feet tall because you're not in that side yard setback.
Would it be possible to add reverse corner lot to the definition
Yeah.
section with a little diagram or example?
We can do that.
Yeah,
That's a good
that-
idea.
It's a great idea.
And then the next number 4, no fence shall exceed 6 feet in any rear or interior side yard. So we'll cap
Right.
anything else. Any other fence is capped at 6 feet.
6 feet.
Question, because I don't think it's part of the code here, and I'm not sure it ever has been part of the code, but I've come from places where it is part of the code. That the ugly, this is my layman's terms, the ugly side of the fence has to face your yard, and the nice side of the fence has to face the street or your neighbor's yard.
It is not in this code. Do you want to put it in this code?
No.
Then
The-
you have to
what-
define what
what-
ugly and what is.
Oh,
Side of the fence.
I know what you're
So-
talking about because let's say you put up a wood picket fence and all the cross beams and stuff.
Yeah.
You don't want that facing the street, right? You don't want it facing out to the street or,
What?
right?
It is.
mhm.
Let's discuss this because this is a good point.
I mean, I've never lived anywhere besides here where the ugly side could face the street or face your neighbor, which is even to me more egregious.
Well, and
You decide you're gonna put up a fence and now your neighbor has to look at the ugly side of your fence. But.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of one of those, but that's kind of one of those, you know, if it's on a shared property line, it's one of those first come, first serve. If you're there first and you put up the fence, you get to look at the nice side.
I've been in,
If your
Right,
neighbor,
but if you go.
if your
for
neighbor wants to look at
repairing
the
that
nice side, then
fence,
they just put a fence up right there too.
right, I've been in properties where there's two
Yeah.
fences that are
Yeah,
adjacent
yeah.
because one person does not like the other
Right.
person's fence.
Well, what do other towns do?
So I've never seen that in anywhere that I've seen. And even when I lived in Colorado, I never saw it up there as a requirement. So-
Let's not add it. No. Then we'll have a debate.
No, it's a good question. It's a good question.
We would have a debate. Okay. I think we're going over the edge.
Well, I know, yeah.
Half hours.
But what I've done is actually negotiate with the neighbor and we both pay half the amount. And then
You build.
you figure out whatever you want with it, where it's facing.
Also build a fence that have two
Or you go, you do back and forth. I've seen them both ways.
Mhm. Well, I'm going to go on record saying that, you know, I think it's important. I don't think the ugly side should be thrust on somebody.
I think we don't want to get into that debate.
Yeah.
Say that alone.
It feels like a water
I
conversation.
just don't think we want to get into that debate.
Look at my fence when you walk by it next.
No, I know. what you're
And the
saying.
ugly side might not be everybody's ugly side.
Well,
So
right,
it's a
you
little
might-
subjective.
Might like the side. with the
Exactly.
person Because they're gonna hang stuff on it or do something to it.
Mm. All right, well, I wouldn't like it, so.
But some people
Okay.
would.
Fences now, Alan.
Yeah.
Number 5, fences exceeding the heights above can be built around schools or other public or quasi-public institutions when necessary for the safety or restraint of the occupants. You know, if a school needs an 8-foot fence or something like that, we'll let them do an 8-foot fence. Industrial areas can exceed those heights also with design review approval. There's legitimate instances where they may need, you know, a little bit taller of a fence to surround their property or protect something. And then they shall not apply when greater height is approved through design review to provide adequate screening. So you know, somebody comes in with an apartment complex and we're looking at it and we think, okay, you probably need a little bit more screening. We'll have you go up to 8 feet instead of 6 feet.
So shouldn't you combine 6 and 7 or?
No, because 6 is specific to industrial areas. 7 is kind of leaves it open to other
So
areas.
what if there's like a residence wants to build a taller wall than 6 feet?
So it wouldn't apply to just a regular residence because they're not subject to design review. The standards that we just went through is all residential. So 6 and 7, those are, you know, well, like I said, the multifamily could potentially be one that falls under number 7. Or, you know, a commercial business that is backs up to residential, say, okay, put up a little bit taller of a fence to have that buffer, that screening kind
Oh,
of
okay.
thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Virginia C is kind of in line with what you were talking about too, a little bit. We can add it where we did, or, you know, it talks about placing a fence near any fire hydrant, fire department connection, or fire protection system valve that prevents access pretty much. Minimum 3 feet clear space shall be maintained around the circumference of the hydrant. Unless, you know, the fire marshal says he needs bigger. Do you want us to put the same thing in that? Would that suffice? Or do you want to put it where we talked about a little bit ago?
I'd rather have it in the layout because it
Okay.
saves me man hours,
Okay.
obviously, instead of investigating it. I just know up front that the meter box is there and then I can write the note stating
Okay.
it needs to be around. it.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to ask this, I'm going to put this in here because I know there was a question asked when over off of Old Jerome Highway and Paloma, when they put a chain link fence up, they did barbed wire on top of that. How would we deal with that? Because somebody questioned, do we have an ordinance against barbed wire on top of a fence?
Well, we're moving on to D, and that's exactly where it's at. Hazardous
Okay,
materials.
I'm just not down there yet.
So the
Thank you.
code as it's written right now leaves it wide open pretty much. There's no hard and fast. You can or can't have barbed wire. It's really up to community development if it works.
Barbed wire and similar materials not allowed unless specifically approved in writing by the community development department.
It's on the next page. It's on page 202. The top of it's crossed out. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
okay.
So D, hazardous material, no fence shall contain barbed wire, electric current or charge of electricity, broken glass, or similar hazardous materials or devices, except fences enclosing storage areas in industrial, commercial. That should say may contain, not by contain, may contain barbed wire. So long as such wire is located not less than 6 feet above grade and angled inward toward the property or remains vertical.
So it would be allowed.
It would still be allowed in those situations, subject to, you know, they have to put up a 6-foot fence and then they can put barbed wire on top of that 6-foot fence.
So if you're driving along the 89A and you look, you know, in the commercial area, you'll be able to see barbed wire potentially? Or does it have to be back behind the building?
No, there's nothing that says it has to be screened. So this again says, you know, it's really specific to enclosing storage areas.
Well, I don't think we want barbed wire seen when we're driving along the commercial.
Oh, there's one on Old Jerome Highway.
Yeah.
At
Well,
Paloma.
that one you're referring to, that new one you're referring to matches an existing one that's already there. It's not that storage unit that's
Yeah,
already there.
I've
has
got
it.
that.
And then
But
the
it
other new
says
there.
barbed wire as long, angled inward toward the property. That one's angled outward.
It's, yeah, this is new.
Yeah, see, so that's.
And that's why they either leave it straight up and down or they angle it
Okay.
inward We don't want it angled outward over any
No.
right of way or easements or anything like that.
We give a variance to a commercial building and allow them to build an 8-foot fence versus putting up barbed wire
That would be conditional, not a variance.
or conditional, whatever.
Yeah, we can already do that with 7 above with design
It-
review. But there's always gonna be certain industries that want barbed wire no matter what yeah.
Yeah.
If you want to restrict it completely, we can take it out, but we will get over time people fighting us for it.
Or there's certain yards that need to be
Yeah,
very safely enclosed as best you can.
Yeah, down in the industrial area, like around the smelter site, there's the chain link fence and then there's this huge roll of barbed wire.
Yeah, but
spiral
how about the
fence.
commercial area? Do we want barbed wire in the commercial area?
well, I think again, it can lend itself depending on what's there, you know, if there's like a utility substation or, you know, even potentially the cell tower or certain things like that, that
Huh?
we don't want them.
Many do I want barbed wire so somebody's not getting in my yards?
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I'm just thinking of,
And it can be straight across or, and also could be like this.
Or it could be,
Well, if it's gonna be like this, then it can't angle outward, like they have to keep the edge of it in line with the fence. So it
Okay.
have to be towards the inside of the property.
right,
Yeah.
right, it can't hang over to the
Right.
outside.
Right.
Yeah.
yeah, so if you put it, you had your fence and here's the barbed wire would be like this versus like that.
Right, right. The one that they put in on Old Jerome, it goes out.
Yeah.
It should be in under this, it would be in under this
Yeah.
ordinance.
Moving forward, it would require to
Yeah.
be inwards. The last sentence on that says that fences containing electric current or barbed wire, which means, you know, an actual barbed wire fence, not just on the top, can be allowed in agricultural zones with a conditional use permit.
Right,
And I think that's
that's
pretty
okay.
fair, pretty standard.
That's fair.
Yeah. Materials, fences in all districts shall be constructed of wood, chain link, or masonry materials in good condition. Clover pointed out, maybe we add wrought iron to that
Yes.
Yes.
and leaves, you know, up to our discretion to approve comparable or superior materials. I'll tell you right now, it is not possible to put in here every type of fencing material that somebody might come out with, you know. Now, if somebody comes in and says, I want to do, you know, old rusted out metal that I found on my property to make a fence, yeah, probably not. And we can restrict that.
Would weathering steel be okay?
It potentially could be, yeah, if it falls under that comparable material.
Weathering steel.
Oh,
That kind of leaves it open to, you know, you present to us what your alternative
Right,
material
right.
is. Let's look at it. If it's not going to create any hazards or be dangerous and it's going to look good, then yeah, we'll.
Right.
we'll
There,
allow that.
that's what they've done over in Crossroads. There's several fences like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
yeah, my neighbor.
All right.
Very pretty.
All right. So all the other stuff is, let's see,
Where are we?
201s down at the bottom. We left.
Oh,
that
maximum
highlighted.
fence height,
Um,
yeah.
Those were kind of, do we want to leave some of this, talk about it? So C is maximum fence height in residential districts may not exceed 6 feet except at gated entryways where pillars or posts, single crossbar may exceed such 6-foot height, meaning if you have a, you know, fancy
Mhm.
entryway
Entrance.
and your posts are going to be above 6 feet, do we want to allow that?
Yeah, that's a Santa Fe style.
Yeah.
Courtyard has that.
Yeah. So we're
Or
okay
there's
with
been
leaving
a
that?
Couple, I think, on Main Street where they've done kind of that.
Archway kind of thing.
Yeah, archway kind of
Yeah.
entrance.
So that's not allowing the entirety of the fence to be
Yeah,
above 6, just, yeah, just that part, okay? Next one, fences adjacent to streets and commercial and industrial may exceed 4 feet. Provided site distance triangles are met. So it's restricted to 4 feet in residential. Do we want to allow that to go up to 6 feet, commercial and industrial?
If you want somebody to put a 6-foot fence along 89A, so you can't see from 89A
That would be a
into the
different.
business. What?
No, we really don't want.
Yeah,
that.
they couldn't do it in the front yard. This is, you know, like the corner commercial lot.
Okay. And say,
Fences adjacent to streets in commercial and industrial zones may exceed 4 feet provided size distance triangles as defined in section are maintained.
Yeah, you might want to clear that up.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because to me, that means you could have 4 feet at the corner and then you could go 6 feet the rest of the way. I don't. On the. like, on the
Anywhere that's
fence.
commercial, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't want
Okay.
to
We
see
can,
that.
we can take that out. That's why I highlighted it, because that was, this is stuff that was already in the code.
Yeah, I
So,
take it
okay.
out.
All right. And then E is, wind load and design standards. We could leave that one in there.
Right.
That's for anything over 6 feet tall.
Yep.
And then G, do we want to accept height limits on fire stations, church spires, domes, belfries, monuments, water tank towers, fire towers, transmission towers, those kinds of things? It kind of was already mentioned previously where we can allow that with design review. Are we okay with that? Or this, you know, actually specifically calls out certain situations? I think my personal opinion is we strike this out because it is addressed in the other part.
Yes.
Okay.
Not to repeat things.
I know. Yard encroachments, that one we moved previously when we talked about that. We did leave the R4A stairs. I don't know where that came from. That's, you know, manufactured homes kind of thing, having the stairs and stuff, make sure that they can do that. I'm fine with leaving that there.
So does this,
We can move this one back up to where the rest of it is. Yeah, that's what we're
Yes,
gonna
I
do.
would do
Yeah.
that. Yeah, put it in there.
Move to
Move it to the,
objections over required yards. Home occupations, we didn't change a lot in here. Number 3, there should be no employees other than members of the immediate family. That's up for discussion. Typically, you don't want employees coming and going from home occupations. Number 6, I highlighted that because I don't remember. I thought we did put sign requirements in the sign chapter for home occupations.
let's check that, but if it's there, that's
But we
where
can
it should
strike
be.
this. If it's in there, we'll strike
Yes.
this out. We don't need it in both places.
Yes,
Yeah, number 6, double check the
check,
sign.
check and
I
move.
thought we did it. We did
But
put it in
look-
there.
Just confirm that.
Yeah. All right, this one off-street parking.
Oh, wait, go back. Number 3 under home occupation.
Oh, yeah.
What if there's an ADU? Could the employee live in the ADU?
Well, yeah, because they're
Would be a living
living on the
situation.
site, so that would be fine. Yeah, they're living
It's a
there.
living situation,
Right.
not an employment situation.
Right, correct. But if they live there and we're, you know, part of the home occupation, that's fine. All right, parking. So you'll see all of that crossed out. Don't worry, it's just being moved. We didn't take all of it out, we just moved it. So I think it's better to put all of that kind of towards the end of the section. So we just kind of cleaned it up a little bit, expanded on some things, put some things in there that weren't. General regulations, you know, mixed use developments. Is a sum of each individual use unless it's demonstrated that the uses are compatible for shared parking. So, if somebody comes in with a PAD and they put commercial and residential on their lot, the residential part has to meet its own parking requirement as well as the commercial. But if they can show that across the board, they're not going to create issues with each other, then they can come to that number that's a balance in between. Any uses not mentioned, this is kind of similar to what we talked about before. If there's a use that is not listed in this parking schedule, we'll look at it and decide how many we think they need. We'll compare it to similar uses to come up with those numbers. Again, it's not possible to try to figure out every use that's going to require parking. Once we do that, the next day somebody will come in with one that we didn't put on the list. Guaranteed. The next page, exempted areas, lots 1 through 10, block 44, the westerly half of lot 10 and lots 11 through 16, block 45, Clarkdale subdivision are exempt. That was in the previous code, so I didn't get a chance to look into details on what that
I think
encompasses. So
that upper and lower,
it might be, so I just left it alone for now.
upper and lower Clarkdale,
That might be.
because of parking requirements. There's none, basically. They're exempt.
And I don't, I'm not looking at it in front of me, but we're just going through this right now because I sold off the half of my parking lot, the 1012, half of the parking lot. Then I sold off half of the parking lot in the caboose to the glasses. And their lots that they bought, and now I'm trying to remember 7 and 8, had a parking requirements. And nobody else in that block, and I think that's 45, nobody else in
Oh,
that
that
block
could be
had a parking lot.
downtown.
requirement.
It was
Yeah.
the downtown area. That's what these are.
Didn't make sense to me why they had to have parking, where those two lots required to provide parking, but nobody else on Main Street has required parking.
Right. And that was something we wanted to bring up is because I was made aware of that previously. And that was a discussion we wanted to have when we got to this. Do we want to expand that to include that last part to the end of the block there? So it's all the same. Yeah.
Nobody else has to provide parking,
Right.
specific
Right.
on-site parking.
Right.
And they don't have a parking.
But I think,
They have it, but what if somebody decided they wanted to build on there?
Correct. Then they're subject to
And
parking
then-
standards where if somebody next to it.
Yeah,
you
that's
wanted to
not,
take-
that's not fair for that area to do that. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll make sure that we expand to include that. So that whole block is.
but we have concern too because of some of the lots there. They're changing the uses of those lots. You have newsstand that's putting in B&B, Airbnbs, or could eventually be a rental. And then you have the old Main Street Cafe that's being remodeled that potentially will have residential spaces as well. And those are going to be permanent
Oh.
residents that are gonna be ending up in my alleys, blocking my trash trucks, and I need to have a way to require it for the uses of residential. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
Because I
yeah,
can't,
and
I mean, they can't park on the street
Yeah, I
for
agree.
2
Yeah.
hours, but they can't be in my alley either.
Yeah, no, I mean, I see what you're saying.
yeah, and that gets really tricky. There's no easy way to accommodate that, unfortunately. But you do see in most historic districts don't require parking because of the nature of how they were constructed and the history of them and how historic, they're built lot line to lot line, pretty much buildings touching. And there's just no possible way to accommodate parking most of the time. So it is one of those things that's very difficult to address. And if somebody wants to come in and do a mixed use like that, but they can't accommodate parking, do we say, sorry, you can't do the mixed use when we need housing?
I get it, but only half of that may even be real housing. So I don't know.
Well, that's a
Or none of it
discussion.
could be housing.
Well, and that's true.
But that's, but,
And if it's
but,
not
but you
housing-
already,
But if it's not housing, then it's not going to create
Right,
a traffic issue.
right.
And then I've no problem.
So again, there's no easy way to address it other than, lack of a better way to say it. Yeah, parking's restricted on the street already. You restrict it in the alley and it becomes a problem of the tenant that lives there for what they need to do. But then what other,
What other options do we have?
unless we provide some off-premise parking for them someplace else.
right, yeah, and it's.
And that's not going to happen.
So,
They are, absolutely. But we're still, waiting for the final
No,
on
it's-
newsstand, and who knows what's going to happen with the rest
It
of
is a tricky situation,
those.
very tricky.
On the newsstand, isn't there parking in the back?
Yeah, that's what she mentioned,
Yeah.
was that they do have
That's,
some
that's,
limited
di-
parking, and that's great.
different. As well as the one building down further, the old, what I call the Bluff Building.
yeah.
Well, but the hotel isn't any different. They just use street parking.
That's commercial and it's a hotel. It's
But
different.
the
It's not long-term. There's no, I don't have a resident that's living there.
But we're only talking one, this is probably only for the 2 blocks up, the 1 block on each side. And the one side has available parking for some long-term, because you've got one on the backside of the alleyway between First South and 10th and Main Street. There's at least one unit that is of long-term rental back there that has parking. So you've got parking available on that one side, but now we can say, we're saying on the other side, there's no parking available, but we allow mixed use. You can't, how are we going to split that
no
part? That we
idea.
can't. I understand what you're saying, Virginia, for getting trucks up and down there. And it's not just yours.
No,
It's anybody using that alleyway.
deliveries.
Deliveries, people just driving on it generally. But we can't disadvantage a building of the buildings on that side just because that doesn't exist. They could have filled in everything on the other side. We'd have the same problem. We don't require parking. I don't know what the answer is. I see what your dilemma is, but I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah, there's, like I
Me
said,
either.
it's not easy. It's one of those, what's the worst? What's the lesser of the 2 evils?
Isn't there some cleaned up and, that could be made next to Main Street Cafe? On like the west side, between the cafe and the.
Right, but it's a matter of if I don't require them to have parking, what allows the town to tell them that they need parking to do that to their property?
We can't.
You know what I'm
We
saying?
can't.
You
I
know,
don't think we can.
there are different opportunities that they could, that they could do different things, but if here we say, don't worry about
But they
it.
could take that lot, yeah, no, I see, but they could take that lot in between Classic and Main Street and build something there.
Mhm.
Landlord, you should provide some kind of parking for.
I would think so.
Say it anymore, yes.
I mean, if I was a good landlord, I'd make sure that area there would be added in for parking. But I'm sorry, yeah.
I know we're a little off on the sidetrack, but it seemed in something I was reading that, is it true that that the town will not allow a parking structure to be built here?
Right downtown in the central business district, correct. We put that in the central business district.
This
Then
corridor
We couldn't do a
here.
parking
this problem's not
structure.
going away.
Hmm?
I mean, people need a place to park. And
We have plenty of parking downtown, honey.
Okay,
I
just
mean,
curious.
the good thing on the weekends is that the town lot is available for overflow. I mean.
Yeah,
there's less-
absolutely.
There's less parking here, you know what I mean? Like, there is. But there will become a time when parking downtown will certainly not be as easy as it is. right now.
But then we can change that part of the code, amend that part of the code later. Right now, we're not saying, we're saying right now, we don't want,
No, I don't know what the solution is. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
That you're right. I mean, there will be, when all of these businesses are open, it will become more challenging to park downtown. Yeah, that's just true. And I'll comment off record to you later about my thought about parking structures.
as somebody said years ago, you don't have a parking problem until you have no parking left in your downtown area. That's
And we have the
success.
post office for overflow. I mean.
We've got overflow areas.
And we have, luckily, we have this parking and we have the post office.
Town hall.
Well, yeah, like when there's music playing at the park in the summer, I'm always parking at the post office.
Sorry.
No,
Every event we do downtown.
I hope you'll be walking down.
that's why I parked the post office.
Let me throw out there too that a lot of places hasn't hit here yet, but it will. A lot of places, states are preempting parking requirements. So our legislature has thrown it about on a couple bills over the last couple of years, but not hardcore. But given what they've been doing, I wouldn't be surprised if they did. So keep that in mind too, that they may take away our ability to regulate parking anyway.
Right.
In fact, if I remember right, they may have done that with the ADU stuff. Well, I don't think we can require an additional parking space.
Yeah, I think it's.
So it's already going down that road with being able to require so much parking.
No answer. I don't think we can do anything to.
All right. Design standards for parking. This is all pretty standard stuff. All parking facilities shall be designed with appropriate access to a street, alley, or public 207,
Go 7 right below except areas.
as well as necessary maneuvering, ingress, egress, internal traffic circulation, off-street parking and loading facilities, and pedestrian ways are designed to promote safety and convenience, so traffic visibility is not obstructed. All driveways are sufficient width to permit access into spaces, no less than 10 feet wide for one-way and 20 feet for two-way travel. Each parking space is not less than 9 feet in width by 20 feet in length. That's pretty standard. Except that 20 feet can be reduced to 18 where the front or rear of a vehicle hangs over, a berm or a curb or something like that. But definitely not over a property line and not obstructing a sidewalk or walkway or something like that. So, minimum space of 10 feet in width, 35 feet in length, and 14 feet in height with access to usable street, alley, or public for a loading space for one vehicle. All off-street parking, except for residential, shall be surfaced with a permanent dust-free pavement striped to requirements. All light is arranged to reflect the light away from adjoining lots, and that's kind of coming out of the lighting chapter that we did. Can't have vehicles backing into a street. Parking stalls and aisle layout must conform to the table listed, and that table was already in place. It's a pretty standard table. You see it a lot of places. This one's not really any different.
G, if you have a 3-car garage, you have to have a area for a 3-point turn or?
No, this isn't applicable to residential.
Okay.
Yeah. So that table's basically telling you, you know, depending the degree of the parking, what lengths and widths you have to have. Non-residential parking, you know, you have to be able to maneuver without having another vehicle moved. So if it's a really tight spot, you know, you can't have vehicles stacked to where you can't get one out without moving another one. Again, K is what I just mentioned earlier. You can't have overhanging vehicles restricting traffic, whether it's with other vehicles or pedestrians or bicycles or anything like that. Location, they should be located on the lot.
Yeah, I can't resist. Main Street Cottonwood, when trucks, those angled parking are not deep enough for some of those trucks.
No, they're not.
Those trucks should be parking there. There's signs that say this is not, if your truck is this big, you should not park here. It's not the
Right.
parking spots. It's
Yeah.
people who park the trucks that are the
Yeah.
problem. They should be-
And you see the same thing in Jerome too. They restrict that, but people still do it. So, where are we at? Yeah, locations. So, parking lots should be located to the side or rear of the building. It's not always possible. It's just something we want to, that's why it says should and not shall, because we can't 100% require that in every development that comes through. Use of shared parking, shared driveways, cross connection. We want to encourage that. Shared parking agreement would be required in that case. Adjoining lots, you got to have the access ways not exceeding 24 feet. You don't want to make a whole separate lot be an access way for one other lot. All the parking spaces, access drives, we will want to try and keep them 5 feet from rear and side lot lines. Unless it's required to be further, you know, if street landscaping requires it to be further than that, it can be 10 feet, 15 maybe. No parking spaces or asphalt within 5 feet of the front property line. Any garages or, you know, if there's rooftop parking or anything within a building or a basement or any place there might be a parking option is considered, it counts towards the off-street parking requirement. So, you know, apartments are a good example. If they provide garages, they would count for the off-street parking. Exceptions for uses located near public parking lots. So this might help with what you were talking about, Virginia. You know, we can approve a reduction of up to 50% if it's non-residential use. And so we get that mixed use kind of question in there. And okay, are we doing it for the residential or are we doing it for the commercial part of it? But, you know, allow them to have 50% reduction if the town owns a parking lot within 300 feet of that use. Required parking is located within 300 feet of the building. So you don't want, you know, a huge lot with a building here and a parking lot 1,000 feet across the property over here. safe pedestrian access shall be provided within that 300 feet. Off-site parking's not permitted for residential unless approved through a PAD. That one, the wording on that's kind of, I was playing with that. It's one I wanted to bring up. So I know it sounds a little conflicting with some of the language before. But the PAD, you know, we do require parking for residential uses, but not the same as we do for commercial, obviously. In that table, that's a couple pages.
Mountain Gate, like in the. Yeah, there's extra parking spots, kind of. stuff like
Yeah,
that.
so they have to have on-site parking. They can't do an off-site, you know, shared parking kind of thing. Must be located within the same zoning classification. So if you have a commercial use and you're able to have off-site parking, it can't be in a residential area. Parking agreement, it just kind of spells out what has to happen for a parking agreement. So, you know, if two adjoining property owners need so much parking, but neither one of them can accommodate it, then they can enter into a parking agreement where they can use each other's parking. We just need to see it. We need to approve it. The town needs to approve it. Has to list the names of the ownership, interest, just legal description of the properties, to show the site plan. It runs with the land. So if one property owner decides to sell, a new property owner can't come in and then say, well, sorry, you can't park here now, and screws up that adjoining property's parking ability. Includes the town as part of the agreement, can't be canceled or modified without the town's approval. Again, just kind of requires that the parking can't back into a public street unless certain conditions are met. And that's typically, you know, if it's 1,500 feet, the end of a street, average daily trips are less than 1,000, and it doesn't create safety hazards. So, you know, you might see that a good example of that would be, you know, perhaps a small number of townhomes on a dead end road, you know, and they have the room to put the townhomes there, but not necessarily provide full maneuvering parking, and you can back out into the street because there's not a lot of traffic coming down that street. So it's situations like that where that could apply. And then the last thing on that requirement is it's a road that's 25 miles per hour or less. So obviously we're not going to have it on the highway or anything like that. Surfacing is pretty standard, you know, access ways, parking areas, access ways and driveways, compacted ABC, not less than 4 inches, with a minimum 2-inch asphalt on it. As long as the town engineer is okay with it. Goes on to talk about surface water. That's all engineering will take care of that and look at it. And that would require to any development that requires more than 10 new parking spaces. Anything 10 or less, they can do a chip seal. They can do, yes.
Is this a place for us to encourage people to use alternative than asphalt for parking lots? Like,
Yes, and that is next. So, yeah, so 10 or fewer, they have the option of doing chip seal. Porous paving and surfacing options for parking, drive aisles, and sidewalks may be approved by the town engineer as alternatives to the above asphalt and chip seal requirements. Is that what you're looking for?
yes.
Okay. So there are some things that need to happen for that though. And really it needs to be that whatever is proposed can accommodate the traffic, delivery vehicles, everyday traffic. And the biggest is that it still is dust-free and it can accommodate up to 80,000 pounds for fire trucks.
Have you seen the parking lot at Merkin?
Yes, I know. That's exactly what came to mind. And these requirements are very similar to what they had. So somebody comes in and wants to propose something totally not pavement, as long as they can meet these requirements, we'll absolutely say that they can do it. Yeah. Yeah. So, like I said, the absolute, the biggest things on that one are going to be, drainage, runoff, dust-free, and accommodating fire. And that's, as long as they can meet all of that, then there shouldn't be any issues with an alternative surface. Access is from a two-way driveway of 24 feet in width, maximum of 32, or two one-way driveways of 12 feet, maximum of 20. And this is something that we can look at. This is pretty standard, conversation with engineering if they're okay with it. Access driveways should not be located closer than 150 feet from a street intersection or closer than 20 feet from another access drive. That has a lot to do with safety. You don't want people backed up coming in and out, trying to turn off the streets and that kind of stuff. Or closer than 10 feet from interior property line. If that's not possible, and there's instances where it's not, those numbers can be minimized if approved by community development and engineering. So it's not hard and fast that you have to meet this. If you can't, sorry, you can't do anything. That's just kind of the standard that we want to see if it can be met. It goes on to talk about some of the engineering requirements that we want to see with it. Drainage stuff, all of that. Question that I wanted to put in here is after number 7 at the bottom of page 213 that's highlighted. Do we want to perhaps allow for compact stalls? And if so, that number, up to 10%, and then it has 7 foot 6 inches, minimum 15 for the stall size. It's becoming a pretty common allowance for places to accommodate more compact parking. It does help people meet parking requirements if they otherwise may not. So
Say yes, except for what we see in Old Town is that people don't follow that.
I know.
They park big trucks.
I know.
I just don't have faith in people. It then becomes a policing and a monitoring
Yep.
issue, which I don't think we have the capacity to deal with. I mean, that's because the parking spots aren't the problem in Old Town, it's the trucks.
Right.
Yeah, so
Right.
maybe we can start without it.
Maybe there's a project that maybe it comes, that it's, I don't know.
So strike it out.
I think that's great.
Okay. All right. And then a request to reduce requirements. That's an option if the nature of the property or the use or something like that may not generate a typical amount of parking that you might see. They can ask for it to be reduced, provided that they, prove that they don't need as much parking as otherwise might be required.
Just started to think about like along 89A, everybody up there has more parking than they know what to do. Like I feel like Chateau Tumbleweed
And that's part of why when I said earlier that
Pierce both have like so much parking. Yeah.
that's why I said earlier about the state preemption on it is they're looking at situations like that. And I know that's commercial related, but they're looking at the commercial part and applying it to residential, saying you can't require parking. And then last question, do we want to add bicycle parking requirements? Saying that, hey, if you come in and you're gonna open up a new commercial or multifamily, you have to put in bike racks to accommodate a certain number of bikes.
I like that with the multifamily. I mean, that would, that to me would be a nice thing in like neighborhoods near parks. Yeah. Yeah.
What would the requirement look like?
It would be a percentage based on the number of parking that they're required to have. So if they're required in, certain number of spaces, they have to put in 10 or 20% of that in bike parking. Or, if with a minimum of 2. So if they're 10 or 20% didn't equal 2 spaces because it's such a small use or development, then they have to at least put in 2. So it's usually percentage based.
And you spell out what you're talking about?
Yeah, we'd put in language in here that would look at it. We could send it to the group if we choose to do that.
How
Okay.
many bikes do we see parked on? Because the only bike parking I know of is on Main here in town. How often do we see it? Because I don't pay attention. I'm oblivious. But how often do we see stuff? I mean, I'd hate to put additional requirements on somebody coming in when what we have isn't already being utilized in town.
Laura's correct. If it's around multifamily, you would want it.
Well, and you would think it even near, the multimodal and whatnot, but if what we currently have isn't being utilized, why would I require it for an additional thing that, would to an additional expense to these people that are trying to build, or whether it's commercial or multifamily? Just
The ones
I
that
don't know.
I've seen is,
just a question.
and with the work that I do, like work down in Phoenix or other areas, it's just standard thing.
Great.
But it's very simplistic. It's just one bike rack that's gonna be able
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
put the sidewalk.
Yeah.
So I was just trying to say it's not.
It's not a big complex
Complex.
thing, but it's an additional cost. It's an additional thing to do. It's an additional requirement.
Get them Vincent to paint them a fun bike. rack.
But I
interesting.
think if you're going to encourage families to have kids with bikes in multifamily areas, then
Right, a good place to lock
it
them
would
up
be
and stuff.
better, or they're going to be putting them in the stairways and stuff. So I think yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which one comes first?
Mhm.
Which one comes first?
It might come together.
I don't know, I just drove around the new neighborhood over in Camp Verde. I saw bike racks, but there must be bike racks.
I'm not sure.
Well, there was a multifamily that they did a remodel in Cottonwood and we required bike racks. And when I went to do the inspections I was responsible for, those bike racks were highly used. There was
Yeah,
not an
see, I
empty
think-
one, like they were full.
Oh,
I
and,
think
and
we
we're
required
promoting,
16.
we're promoting
They were
bike-friendly
So-
community and all of that. I think we have
Yeah.
to.
Like,
That would be a
Bike
huge
racks
number,
down.
Yeah.
not like,
I'm not, yeah,
but I think it's.
something.
Not saying that I want this. Do we need to put in motorcycle parking?
I was
Do
thinking
what?
the same thing,
Engineering.
Or it could be used to.
because I think it's nice, you guys have one as well.
Yeah, by
Yeah.
nature of design, it just, the way the two.
Yeah. so
Motorcycle parking.
Think about commercial.
Yeah,
Motorcycle
Do we-
parking.
motorcycle parking.
Is that a thing?
Is that a thing for
They
motorcycle
park wherever they
parking?
want to park.
Yeah, there's places that have motorcycle parking.
If you had motorcycle parking, you could probably get 2 or 3.
Like an old town park, what they do.
Yeah.
Down in front of Iron.
No.
All right, so now you'll see the parking requirements. So that's just been moved. There's no changes to it. It is, pretty thorough. Like I said, you can't accommodate every use, so we just kind of look and see what they're proposing and where it fits. And then the next pages is just crossing out everything again, because we moved it around. And then I know apparently engineering's not happy with me, but all the traffic and pedestrian access section, I was going to move to engineering standards and take it out of here. But I don't know. I guess they don't like that. So if there's anything we put back in here, it'll be, pretty standard stuff. Do we want to talk about that now, or do you want to talk about that separately?
About what?
The engineering stuff in the parking requirements. It's really going to talk about, safety and circulation and that kind of stuff. It's not going to talk about what parking's required and where. We just kind of went over all of that.
What page are we going to?
What do you think, Virginia?
I gave Clover the notes that engineering pushed back as far as the division of what was reasonable to put in engineering standards, and then we can go over the rest to see if it's better to fit in town code somewhere else
Gotcha.
aside from engineering standards, or if we need to move it back into here somewhere.
Okay.
But maybe we'll just meet separately and then you can push it back out to the group later.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
I think that's.
All right. And then the last section is rear yards and business and commercial zones, loading and unloading. We didn't change anything in there. That's just talking about, if you have loading spaces, what you have to do to have a loading space on the back of your building. Bed and breakfast establishments, we didn't change anything in that one. Sidewalk cafe permits, we did make some changes in there, nothing too extreme. On page, if you're in the bottom right, 232, under C, we just took out what needs to be provided and just said that it needs to follow design review requirements, which then includes all of that. So it's just easier to put it as that. The next page, we did take out a couple of things and added some stuff. So
Is there a reason you want highlighted this?
yeah, so that one says that the planning commission will review and approve sidewalk cafes as part of design review. They can no longer do design review anymore, but that doesn't mean that they couldn't look at sidewalk cafes. So do we want to keep that as something that they look at and approve separate from design review? Okay. Okay, so we'll keep
But
it.
it's not a DRB act.
No, it's not. It's going to be a design review application because that's where it fits, but it's not going to be considered design review that they approve. They just approve, yes, you can have that sidewalk cafe, or no, you can't.
Okay.
Next one, D, talks about furniture. The very last one, we just changed it, not allowed to prohibited. We took out the sign stuff because that'll be associated with the business itself under the sign code. We didn't change anything with hours. Lighting is going to have to meet lighting requirements. We did.
Like an umbrella.
Do what?
How strong a wind?
That would be up to the building code. Building official would determine that.
Okay.
The other restrictions under H, all permitted encroachments, it will maintain a minimum distance of 5 feet on the sidewalk. All services to support the sidewalk cafe are supplied within the adjacent building. Basically, no off-site
Right.
sidewalk cafes. We left the amplified music, liquor service alone. We did add under number 6 on page 235, the location restrictions, the bottom encroachment area shall not extend laterally beyond the business's building frontage. So basically, you know, you have this much of building frontage, that's how much sidewalk cafe you can have. You can't go
Right.
past into the other
Right.
building. Town may temporarily suspend a permit when construction, street repair, or utility work is needed. Indemnity and liability, we left that. That's pretty clear in there.
Is there a noise restriction?
Isn't that under our noise ordinance?
Yeah, that's says on number 2, back on page 234, no amplified music is permitted. Single acoustic instruments such as a guitar can be allowed.
Crowd is loud or.
Yeah, that would fall under the noise ordinance. Yeah, that wouldn't come in here.
I think that has to do with a decibel reading of some sort.
And then we are missing something in here. What's going on here? 236, 230. Oh, yeah. Okay, so the bottom of page 235, standard for golf course developments. We didn't change anything in there. Talks about design standards, construction documents, water studies. We left that one alone.
I will be putting it all under one. It'll just each section.
Yeah, we're gonna clean that up.
Subsection.
It'll be like.
Yeah.
these,
Right.
Not like only
Right.
sections.
Yeah. Next one, wireless communication structure. We tried to revamp this to, you know, make sure it fits with federal requirements, and it should. It's all wireless communication towers, monopoles, antennas, small wireless facilities. So, you know, it's not just a cell tower. It could be a ham radio tower. It could be TV antenna, anything like that. You know, we're not trying to restrict them across the board unless people start getting excessive with them and wanting to go 100 feet tall. So we have definitions of what they are, approval requirements. Any new wireless communication tower shall require a conditional use permit. We want to encourage co-location.
Yeah.
We want them to demonstrate that they looked into co-location, whether it's on existing towers, existing buildings or structures, utility poles when and if they can happen. Sometimes you'll see, I don't know if the school here has it, but I know the high school has some cell antennas on their field lights. Yeah, so that's kind of co-location that we're talking about in there.
Are they allowed to put them in neighborhoods?
So that's the next one right here, number 2. Residential areas, new towers shall not be permitted within residential zoning districts unless the applicant demonstrates no feasible alternative location exists. That gets really tricky with the federal requirements. And they're starting to change some of that on almost taking away the ability to restrict them anywhere. So.
Or what, where would they, is it somebody's property that can pump it down on their property?
Yeah, you'd have to get permission of the owner, and you still have to do, you do still have to meet certain requirements. Um, but it's getting very hard to say you can't put this or that in any zoning district. They're starting to crack down on that.
Like existing power poles and something, that's a co-location possibility.
Yeah,
that
yeah, and they
could
have to-
mitigate that.
Yeah, and they have to say, you know, oh, well, we tried to put it here, but the utility wouldn't let us, or this wouldn't allow for it, or whatever.
Over.
Yeah. And they could lend themselves to that. So hopefully the wireless industry will do that. Can't be located in front yards, the highway corridor. Anything located within 500 feet of the center line shall be subject to enhanced design review, to minimize visual impacts. So the previous code said that they're not allowed within 500 feet of the center line. That is a violation of federal requirements. We can't restrict that. So we have to allow them, but we can say, okay, you got to make it look like a pine tree, or you got to make it look like a cactus, which I've seen maybe one pine tree in my life cell tower that actually looked good. Although I did see one today that looked like a palm tree, and it did look pretty good.
But the problem with them is over time, you add more stuff to them,
Yeah.
then they start losing what they
Go-
look like, or they need repair and they never get repaired. So I mean, I understand the want to do that. Yeah,
Yeah.
but we've got the big one over in our area, and I'd rather have it just sit there than trying to hide it.
Go look at the
because it's
three.
there.
Go look at the 3 pine trees in Cottonwood, and they look like crap,
Yeah,
and they do not look good.
yeah. They're over by looks fine.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Then an
There's one
ugly
on-
pine tree, yes.
There's one on Main Street right before you get to Circle K that doesn't look that great. There's one at the tennis courts at the high school that doesn't look that great.
No,
And there's one
they
at the
don't over
VFW. Well, they never did, even from the beginning.
Yeah, and
They
they
never
get
did.
worse when you add more things you
Yeah.
need to add to them. So I'm not a big fan of it, but people want it, that's fine.
Setback shall be required for the underlying zoning district. Unless it's required by federal law, towers shall not be located closer to a residential dwelling than a distance equal to the height of the tower. So if it's a 60-foot tower, it's got to be at least 60 feet away from a residence.
Okay. I mean, basically what you're saying is.
The design standards, kind of what we just talked about, like the monopole, flush mounted antennas, color matching, concealment. If, we decide we want to make them do it, doesn't say they have to, but it is an option. Ground equipment shall be screened. Towers shall not be illuminated except required by FAA. Signs required by federal law or safety signs are allowed. No other signs are allowed. Conditional use permit is required again. They have to show, everything that shows they would otherwise have to show for design review, coverage map, elevation drawings, environmental review, proof of the FCC license, proof that it will comply with FCC frequency standards, and a letter of authorization from the property owner. Any wireless facility that is not operated for 180 days is considered abandoned and shall be removed within 90 days after notice from the town. All right, temporary uses and temporary structures. We changed a few things in here. Not a whole lot. I did highlight number 3, notices of the temporary use permit application will be sent to surrounding property owners. If you remember from previous discussions, we do that for conditional use permits and rezones. Do we want to do that for temporary uses?
But how far? I mean, what's?
If we keep this in here, we'll match the 300 feet that we do for the others. Okay. Any temporary use exceeding 90 days in a calendar year requires conditional use permit. But it does allow us to approve an extension, at least 2 extensions, not exceeding 30 days each. If we, if somebody comes in and says, hey, can I extend this for 30 days? And we know that they're not going to be here for much longer, or they're not going to, try and circumvent getting a conditional use permit, that would be when we could allow it. Otherwise, it'd be, no, you need to get that conditional use permit because we know you're going to be here longer. They must be in conformance with building and fire codes. Any temporary use should be removed within 72 hours of it stopping. And that we may revoke it if we determine that the use violates the conditions of approval, creates a nuisance, or poses a threat to health, safety, or welfare. Next is performance standards. And this is what we said we were going to take from chapter 3 and put in chapter 4, where it talks about noise. Yeah, it's going to be its own new section. It's going to be noise, smoke, glare, and heat. Sorry, it starts on 248. So in 249, what you see there, so the end of 248, exemption for permitted construction, operation or permitting of the operation of any construction equipment may occur as follows. So I didn't realize this was changed in town code. So everything you see here is not going to be in here. We're going to take this out and match town code. Last year, the state passed an emergency provision that basically said we can't restrict to a certain extent construction hours. So we're just going to match that and put that in here. So all of that, strike through that. Yeah. So then we talk about smoke, glare, and heat. Basically you can't have operations that produce a bunch of smoke out your neighbors. Glare and heat, you can't, exceed certain provisions with that. You can't make it so you're creating so much heat that your neighbors can feel it and you're affecting them. So all of this really tries to keep it on the property. Vibrations, if you have large machines or something that create vibration, it shouldn't go past the building that it's in. Air emissions, dust, fumes, vapors, gases, same kind of stuff. Liquids and solid waste, no discharge of liquid or solid waste should go into the public sewer, create a nuisance, pollute the groundwater, surface water, create unsafe conditions. Odors, same thing. You don't want your, whatever you're doing to create obnoxious odors for surrounding properties. Hazardous materials, subject to federal, state fire requirements, building code requirements for storage, that kind of stuff. So it's all pretty standard stuff for those performance standards. And you'll see that this applies to everything everywhere. It's not.
The noise, only thing we're concerned with is the level of the noise, not with the noise. Could be a high frequency or something. It's really annoying. It drives me crazy, but within the sound level.
So say that again.
As far as noise, like it could be.
So hold on. I can't hear both of you talking.
within the noise level, but it's still driving berserk.
Well, that becomes a nuisance and then we address it as a nuisance. Yeah.
Think of the case.
All right, hazardous, special and radioactive materials, that was already in here. We didn't change anything on that. Storage materials. So we created outdoor storage, general standards, outdoor storage is located in areas designated and approved or with a conditional use permit where applicable. Outdoor storage can't have it in required front yard, can't have it in required landscape buffers, requires parking spaces in fire lanes or emergency access, can't obstruct pedestrian circulation, and it, shall be maintained in orderly and safe condition. Residential district standards, is limited to items customarily incidental to residential use. Prohibited items, unless it's fully screened. So, inoperable vehicles, you can't have a inoperable junk vehicle in your front yard. Yeah, if you really want one, put it in your garage or put it behind a fence. Construction materials not actively being used, commercial equipment, industrial materials, or bulk storage of merchandise. So if you have a home occupation, you can't have stacks and stacks of merchandise outside. Outdoor storage screening, if it's visible from a public street or an adjacent property, it's got to be screened by a minimum 6-foot solid fence or wall, and it should comply with fence height regulations. Materials with an active building permit can be stored for the duration of the permit. So if you are remodeling your house and you have to have some stuff delivered or something and it sits in your driveway till you get going on it, that'll be fine. Commercial and industrial, it's incidental to a permitted use, located in side or rear yards, is screened according to the section. If it is stored outside, it's got to be, again, screened with 6-foot wall, solid fence, maintained in good condition. Materials shouldn't exceed the height of the screening wall. Should be surfaced so that it, if it needs to be, so it's not creating dust or anything like that, and no closer than 10 feet to any residential zoning district boundary. So, you see places like Olson's or something like that, like their storage, they have certain things outside, that's fine. We're not trying to say they can't do that. Somebody comes in and, has a nursery or something, or like Walmart's garden center, and they want to put some plants outside or something. We're not trying to tell them they can't do that. Just, you can't be excessive. You can't put a bunch of dead plants out there kind of stuff. So this kind of clarifies all of that. Prohibited outdoor storage would be hazardous material, junk, scrap, salvage stuff. That's not part of a, scrap yard or junk yard, but that would be located in an industrial area. Anything that creates odor, dust, glare, vibration, or anything else that might be a nuisance under the performance standards. So the temporary outdoor display and storage, that's kind of what I just described in commercial zones. If you have stuff outside that's part of your business, then that's fine. Commercial vehicles, trailers, heavy equipment exceeding 1 ton shall not be stored in residential districts unless fully screened and incidental to a home occupation. Commercial industrial fleet vehicles shall comply with screening requirements. Anything that becomes unsafe, abandoned, or non-compliant is subject to enforcement, and same with failing to maintain screening. Next section, let me know if you have concerns about, because it is in certain areas excessive. And it's related to the storage and parking of mobile homes, RVs, and trailers. You don't really see a lot of mobile homes stored, so they're usually just on a property that somebody's living in it. But commercial trailers, utility trailers, boat trailers, RVs, including travel trailers. Do we want to restrict it so they're not stored, parked, or located in any zoning district other than what's allowed? Meaning, if it is an RV storage area, we want to keep it in, a commercial zone. We don't want somebody with a vacant residential lot to let all of their neighbors put their RVs and travel trailers parked there. That's what the intent of that one is.
But will people who own one have it appropriately parked at the side of their house with a fence around it?
Yeah, so that's this next part here, where we say the storage of not more than one boat trailer, utility trailer, and one RV or travel trailer shall be allowed for each residence. And such vehicles may not be stored in a front yard. So you can store it in a side yard, backyard, but you can't have, excessive amounts of them either.
Could they be like parked on the side of your house,
Mhm.
but it's it abuts a road still? There's, some places have space. It's on the front side.
Yeah, I mean, technically, yeah, it would be your side yard. It's not your front yard. It would be allowed.
I don't know if I own that side of that parking area. Just saying.
Figure out where your lot line is.
Any trailer attached to a vehicle can be parked temporarily for 24 hours in an area designated within a front yard setback, so long as it remains attached. So, if you come home from a trip and you need to park in your front yard to unload, do all that kind of stuff, that's not a big deal. Construction office or security personnel, housing, mobile home or recreational vehicle may be allowed in any zoning district to conduct business or provide for housing security personnel during the construction of a permanent building with a valid building permit. So that's very similar to what we talked about earlier, saying somebody can stay in their RV while they're building their house with an active permit. Medical marijuana, we did not change anything in there. That's pretty updated. Tiny houses.
Right.
We made a couple little tiny changes on that one. Says tiny houses shall be constructed and sited on permanent foundations in compliance with adopted international residential codes, town codes, and fire codes. And then it goes on, like I said, this stuff was pretty much in here. Tiny houses shall have wastewater system sized for the occupancy and fixture count or connect to the town's wastewater system. Certificate of occupancy is only issued that comply with the provisions. Tiny houses on wheels and tiny house RVs are hereby regulated the same as travel trailers under this code. So I had the luxury of going to Phoenix today to tour two tiny house manufacturing facilities. And one of them gave us some language that we can put in here. And they call it a movable tiny home. So they are on, if you've ever seen the chassis of a mobile home and what they tow those around on is basically what these sit on. Less than 400 square feet. They don't build them bigger than that. It's built on a single chassis, licensed with motor vehicle department. And here's where it gets tricky, what we want to do. Towable, can be moved on public highways. Um, what our code says basically is a tiny home can be used as a single family residential so long as it is removed from, or the axles and tires and wheels are all removed and it's attached to a permanent foundation. Then we could, say, okay, you have a tiny home, it can be a single family home. What this one says is that all of that would be hidden from view with the wheels and the jacks sitting on a paved surface such as concrete or decomposed granite, sufficient to hold the weight. The foundation follows that of a manufactured home, which means that it doesn't, you could. Manufactured homes require skirting around them. So that kind of does hide that. But what the concern is with this is if we take this language, and we're not opposed to allowing them as single family homes, but this language says that it basically follows requirements for a manufactured home foundation. And so where it gets tricky is if we want to allow these as single family homes, but they can be cited subject to a manufactured home as far as anchoring, why wouldn't we just allow a manufactured home in a residential district? That's the question. So if we want to make sure that somebody bringing in a tiny home, even these ones, because these ones could qualify, that they remove everything and put it on a permanent foundation, not just anchor it. So is that what we want to keep even for these?
This sounds like an RV of another name. What? Yeah. I mean, that's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, no, these are built to certain requirements. They're not, and
Not built to the same standard, but functionality, from a functionality perspective, they almost are because you could pick it up and move it. That's where I see the similarity, and maybe that's not the.
yeah, and because it is registered with motor vehicle, I don't know if they register it as an RV, but it is registered to be towed down the road. So it could fall under that potentially. I think these homes lend themselves, the ones that we saw today, lend themselves to be a good thing. But again, it's how we want to approach allowing them and where based on how they're basically put on the ground. If they're going to be on the trailer still, they can't be considered a single family home.
Right, to me, it's a manufactured home and it can go in the zoning areas allowed for manufactured housing. They want to put it in a residential.
But some of them could be used for ADUs,
Yeah.
Right.
right? And that would be in a residential.
But I still think that then they need to be permanently affixed, the wheels
Okay,
and chassis.
and I don't disagree with that.
It depend on where they
Okay.
want to put them,
Right.
but they would have to put them in the appropriate zoning.
Right.
And comply with that.
So if they don't want to remove everything and put it on a permanent foundation, we'll treat it as a manufactured home. If they do, then we can allow it as a single family home.
That's
Are we creating a code to accommodate these people?
No,
No, this is the tiny house code is already,
Oh, but
But
the
to-
wording that.
no, this is stuff that they've worked with other jurisdictions to be like, hey, this is what we have.
Yeah.
But no, we're not, no, we're not, they're not asking for special treatment, no.
We'll word ours to make sure that what we just discussed. If
This-
you're gonna be in an R1 and a
Yeah.
single family home.
This would apply regardless of who manufactures it. It wouldn't
Right.
apply to this particular one. This is just language that they gave us because they had it if we were interested.
This was part of the discussion that was had, I think, when the current tiny home development was originally being discussed, was the wheel on, wheel off, type of of things. So I think this is just better defining what it is, the expectation is and where it belongs, rather than having to sit there and try to hash it out on the spot.
But I guess.
Well, it is.
I go back to, we have zones that require stick-built or require permanent homes, and this is essentially a manufactured home. Why? Because there are people who build units off location that are brought on that, but that are built to international building code standards, like a stick-built home. It's not. You know,
These are. these
Yeah,
are-
so the code itself as it is, as it's written now, already allows tiny houses. It says tiny houses are permitted in any single family residential zoning district. But then that differentiation becomes where it says it's sited on a permanent foundation in compliance with building codes. And so you have to meet that for it to be a single family home. It's, the code already allows it. We're just saying, do we want to keep that if it's going to be a single family home? Or do we want to look at allowing it as a single family home, but not sited on a permanent foundation? It can still, it is basically tied down like a manufactured home. And it sounds like the consensus is no.
You see a tiny home that's like a wheels, but it's skirted and everything. Is this still gonna look like a mobile home?
Yes, it's still, because if it's still on the wheels and all of that, then it's anchored subject to the requirements of a manufactured home, which basically is drilling into the ground and, you know, straps anchoring it down.
Get strapped to the ground.
That goes in the mobile home area.
Yeah. Okay.
No.
All right, then we won't
Manufactured.
worry about changing that. So let's, for simplicity's sake, after tiny homes, you'll see a heading right there that says data centers. It's a separate document, but let's skip over that for now because so we don't have to shuffle a bunch of papers. Commercial and residential flagpoles, there's a lot in there. We highlighted it.
Didn't we just go through all of this at one time?
Yeah, and so because the dates on this show that it was in 2024 is the reason I highlighted it and didn't change anything. Do we want to just leave that alone since it's so recent and so new?
Yes,
Okay.
we're not gonna go back through it
Okay,
again.
that's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure. All right, ADUs. So we still need to check on a couple of things with this to make sure that we're in compliance with the state requirements. So no more than one attached or detached per lot. Shall not exceed 1,000 square feet of habitable space. Can be constructed where zoning allows for single family dwelling. We might need to change that one. Setbacks. Rear setback of an ADU shall be no less than 5 feet from the property line. Side setbacks shall be no less than 5 feet from the property line. The front setbacks is no less than the required front setback for a single family dwelling. So you can put it up to 5 feet in the rear and side lot. But again, if you had the ability to put it in the front of your house, your front setback has to be bigger than where your house is. So again, it's that example of if your front yard setback is 20 feet and your house is 50 feet back, you can put one in as long as you're in that 30-foot window. They're separated by at least 10 feet from other buildings. It can be reduced with fire rated walls subject to approval by the building official and fire district official.
Scott, do all towns allow them in the front yard?
If it's outside of the front yard setback, yeah, most places do. But no, nobody allows them in the front yard setback that I've seen. Number 11 on page 270 goes on to talk about RVs, travel trailers, manufactured homes, mobile homes, and similar are prohibited. It just said RVs. We wanted to expand that. Number 12, they,
But with that, we could be with tiny home if it's on a foundation back there.
correct. So that wouldn't apply to that. So you could still use a tiny home on a foundation as an ADU. Yeah. Number 12, no ADU may be used as a short-term rental or vacation rental, as those terms are defined unless the owner of the lot resides on the same lot. We have no control over that. The state mandates that. So we want to put it in here.
Does the state allow this restriction?
Yeah. So I take it back. We do have control. We can allow it as outright if we want. Sorry, I said that wrong. The state allows us to restrict that. Yes. If the owner lives on the lot.
If they live on the
Yes.
lot.
Okay.
Do we want to restrict that?
Okay, because essentially it can't be used as a vacation rental unless somebody lives there,
Right. So if you
which is not,
if you put an ADU on your lot,
you can live in the small one and rent. out.
yeah, you can. If you live on a lot and you put an ADU, you can rent it as a short-term rental. If you move, you no longer can, you have to rent them both as long-term. But if you don't have an ADU, you can rent your main home as a short-term rental all day.
I know.
There's
Well, this is like a little loophole to this whole short term. It's the only,
there's a bill in the legislature right now that may give us back control, some control. Yes.
I don't think it's gonna go anywhere, but
What's that?
optimistic.
I mean, I don't know. It's been a long time coming, but we'll see. I'd be surprised if they do pass it. All right. Sorry, it's a little jumbled. After number 12 starts a new section with trash enclosures. And this is kind of up for discussion. I noticed we didn't really have anything. I think it is good to have something. Basically, in every zoning district, permanent enclosures for every use except single-family dwellings and multifamily with 4 or fewer units. Basically, this is saying if you have a development, you have to provide dumpster pretty much. And then it goes on to talk about what those standards look like. So the multifamily over 4 units should do a dumpster, but if they can't, they can propose alternatives like individual rollaway cans. That's fine. But, you know, the commercial stuff is we want them to have a trash enclosure, constructed of block walls, solid fencing, that kind of stuff. So it's screened, gate in front of it, landscaping around, you know, at least 3 sides of it, that kind of stuff. Access. The gates are equal to the height of the enclosure, equipped with latches, can't be in a front yard.
But the recycling, you still have to bring the recycling up the street.
Yeah, we're not regulating the,
Oh.
yeah. So, any questions on that? Okay. The next one you see, the required conditions for agricultural tourism. That's what we moved out of chapter 3, 4, 5. Yeah, we moved it out of chapter 3. Was it chapter 3? No, it was, I don't know. It was one of the previous chapters. We moved it into here. All right, now. Everybody's favorite. Data centers. I'm going to let Clover take over this one because she came up with this.
All right, so I did some research and just tried to learn like.
Which is not a lot of them.
No.
Turn your mic on.
Right, thank you. And then tried to just mesh it with the size of our jurisdictions and things of that nature. So a lot of this comes from the Marana ordinance, so if anyone wants to look there. But yeah, the definition, I know you guys like kind of the short, simple one. I did expand on that a little bit more because I just feel like it should include, you know, certain things like power generators and that type of thing. So basically it's the purpose and then definition, the use.
Industrial with a
even-
conditional use permit.
Yeah, you would still have to, it would be allowed, I mean, no matter what, you're gonna have to get a conditional use for days. You have to get a conditional use permit. It's allowed in industrial only, but with a conditional use. There is no just putting a data center without a conditional use permit. Yeah. So, there are accessory data centers, so it talks a little bit about that and how those could possibly be allowed with the community development director designees, as long as they were in compliance with the section and the following is true. So obviously just being a lot smaller, like teeny tiny ones, that again would be an accessory use to something else. So say it was a bigger industrial thing and they had a small accessory data center, you know, so.
I think with the sensitivity of data centers, that there needs to be a public process, no matter the size. I think the risk to you approving one on your own
Mhm.
Might be very.
would be
Yeah.
very high.
Yeah, no, that's,
I would want you to carry that
Wait.
responsibility or,
Even if it's a accessory data center,
yeah,
yeah.
even if it's an accessory one, because I just think the word data center.
yeah,
Yeah, and so I
Yeah.
want you to, you know.
and that's fine.
That
Yeah.
Yourself, I feel like.
So then we just would need.
Yeah, so we can just change that, any data center.
Any.
If we
data
can
We'll
change,
just take out accessory.
well,
data
I wouldn't
centers.
necessarily take out the requirements of an accessory,
But if
but
it's
take out
still
the
same
approval.
thing, it's the difference.
Right, take out the approval. That's fine. Yeah.
Right.
And I heard,
Exactly that, yes.
you know, I'll spread a rumor right now. I don't mind.
Site use.
But somebody was shopping Sedona for a small data center.
I-
It was only 1,000 square feet, but still, it's a data center. They were calling Sedona to inquire about it.
So I know, but my question is, do we actually have to allow data centers?
If not now, eventually, yeah. So it's better to do this because, unfortunately, I haven't looked at the updates yet, but some of the first 5,000 bills that were submitted the first week of the legislature, that's an exaggeration, but it seems like it. It seems like it. They were dealing with data centers, but in counties. They didn't move it over to Title IX for cities. They were just focusing on counties, but when they start with one, they come to the other. So if we don't, eventually we probably will. So it's better to get ahead of it.
Are they allowed in the commercial district?
No,
Or
just industrial,
Just industrial.
Industrial.
industrial with a conditional use permit.
Is there a way to utilize effluent?
So it does have.
So,
Yeah, you can.
yeah,
We can,
so-
when we go through,
so on,
Is there?
Yeah.
on page,
it's there, it was
on
part of
page-
what they put in.
yeah, page 275, it says that we need an estimate of annual water consumption and the intended source of the water. So if it's available, yeah, we'd highly
Yeah.
encourage it, but
Says
if it's not,
water shall
yeah.
be used where available.
And how much noise are they allowed to?
So it does say that baseline noise study and noise contour exhibit is required.
There's a big, huge, yeah, the noise section is quite
Yeah.
But it doesn't
Can
say
we-
figure, like how many decibels.
Well,
Should have, did I?
I have a question.
Well,
back
no,
on-
but they're still subject, sorry. They're
Right.
still subject to the noise standards in general, in further up in the chapter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right, but there were either, right, didn't I put in?
Can we go back to the water discussion?
Yes.
Because technology is changing, I think we could consider, I'm just putting it out there, that we would only consider even under conditional use permits, data centers that do not require water for their operations.
Potable water beyond.
It doesn't matter, water, portable,
Want them to have sinks and water fountains.
well, yeah, for their operations,
I
for
know
their
it's- I
operations.
have the table, I just somehow.
Right, because technology, that's where it's going is minimal or no use,
Yeah,
no
immersed.
water use
Immersed or something, immersion.
for data centers,
Closed systems, but I-
closed systems, yeah.
I like to think that what that means. But I think the effluent, is a real good possibility. I mean,
Yeah.
Until
considering what
we,
Industrial area is, considering we have effluent going over there.
until the point that we take the effluent becomes our direct potable reuse, so. Then you don't want that to happen because that goes advanced purification back into the system.
Close.
Okay, I gotcha.
I think we'll be dead.
Sorry there, Laura.
Maybe something in Virginia will still be here. Last a little bit long. Yeah.
I just throw that out there because I think some communities are looking at that as a way to minimize the possibility of data centers coming there is to I just throw it out. If we don't want to do it right now, that's fine, but
Well, it's up to the group. I mean, we'll, whatever you want to recommend, we'll take it to the planning commission and council and
Are there conditions like, sorry for. Like, they must produce their own energy, like, you know what I mean? Like,
They have to get, they do have to, intended source of electric power for the development and documentation from an electrical utility provider affirming sufficient power exists to serve the site. I mean, we could.
yeah, I
put thing-
don't know if we can require them
I don't
to
know, to be like, you
to
have to use. solar
produce their
if you
own
want.
energy. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and at the minimum, they have to
Right.
prove to us that they have
but
pretty
we
much
have to be-
APS saying they can do it.
That they can.
But we have to be real careful of that too, because sometimes the things that would produce their own power, those units themselves could be very noisy and
Yeah.
very disruptive to
Yeah.
a community. So you've got,
So all of a sudden they bring gas generators and.
correct.
Yeah. Well, and we do have so under setbacks, we have generators, any generator yards have to be. So the normal setback is a minimum of 100 feet from residentially zoned properties or a residential use. And then 200 feet for any generators.
I think, yes,
Substations.
I think we just have to be real careful with any, saying they have to bring their own power source.
Mhm.
It wasn't dying, he was, pushing for the sale of the industrial, the old Tulsa site. Who, one of the things that he was touting out to people is that there is X amount of power source down there, and that it actually would be a great site for some kind of data mining, some kind of whatever. So I wouldn't be surprised if, I know, somebody's already bought it, so that may not be on their bailiwick, but who knows?
Right.
I'm sure that
get too close to the portion of the industrial area.
To the what?
You mean to the house?
If it's on the town property is residential, then that.
Yeah, you would have to do that. We couldn't just say,
Right
we
now,
can't
it's
just
not.
outright say you have to be this far from town property.
Yeah.
If it's zoned the same. If we zone it residential, yeah, that'll limit that.
Then it
but
would come into play.
Yeah. All right, any other highlights?
I don't think so.
So
I mean,
this is still very, very new.
yeah.
There's only a handful of places that have done anything with this because it is so new. So we're trying to see what they've done and incorporate it to what we think fits best.
And the noise section should have a table. I apologize for whatever reason. it
That's
didn't.
okay.
There is one, and it's actually divided into daytime and nighttime. So it
Right.
gives like even stricter, noise levels during nighttime, which is also defined right here. So.
I think in water use down here is this is a good statement, on page 278. Where it says air cooled or hybrid cooling systems are encouraged. So that takes away some of the water use, because that's usually where it is.
And saying use of potable water for primary cooling systems, humidity
Right.
control or other similar
Right.
operations is prohibited. Unless there's just no feasible alternative
No.
exists, but.
I mean, I
I
think,
think it's pretty,
I think it's a good start.
Yeah, I think this is a moving target and that. I think there's so much. limited
Unknown,
information,
yeah.
Even for you guys that are professionals to understand, and I think there's so much jargon within the industry.
Not
That
always.
people are using to try to mask what I think is the excessive energy water consumption by saying things like air cooled or there's recirculating system and, that I think was actually skeptical and write this, that gives us as much flexibility and the ability to revise something.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, and as we learn more about them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, I feel like ordinances are really living documents.
Yeah. Yeah, they need to be changed constantly.
I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we hopefully won't be doing this again like this. Hopefully, as we go, we change ordinances as they're needed and when they're
Right.
needed.
Right. But I think it's pretty covers quite a bit without us knowing what we don't know.
mhm. Yep.
That's it. The last couple pages were just shifted. We
Yeah.
had to play with stuff, so ignore that. That's all the
Cut.
parking stuff that we were talking about. Yes. If
All of
you
them.
desire to, with kind of like the motions you made before with the changes that we talked about. Again, some of these things we'll go ahead and resend back to you just so you can make any last minute comments on it if you see you need to. Because we're planning on taking this to a joint meeting March 24th with Planning Commission and Council to start reviewing it so we can get it on some agendas and hopefully get it approved by both in April and May.
Okay, so I will entertain a motion on chapter 4.
4, right, got it.
I'll make a motion that we approve the changes to zoning code chapter 4 as presented, along with the recommended changes.
Do I hear a second?
Perfect.
Second,
All in favor, say aye.
I,
Aye. Opposed?
For 3 seconds. Who's
Or Joe?
Joe,
All right, give it to Joe.
give it to Joe.
Okay, it's not on the agenda, but we usually have a section for future agenda items.
This is it. This is our last meeting. We're done.
Cool.
Thank you, everybody. I thought Craig was
I
bringing.
hear a motion for adjournment.
I thought Craig was bringing us drinks.
Yeah, carries.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
8:43.
I want to say, like,